I exhausted my life savings to marry a pair of twin sisters, yet I have never once touched them. Every time I leave the house, I must first remove the garments they are wearing and dress myself in their clothes. They believe I have lost my mind, never realizing that I wear their attire, because my system explicitly instructs me to, as wearing the undergarments of a cultivation partner increases my proficiency fivefold during training. Furthermore, they are unaware that a trace of their overflowing vitality still lingers upon these clothes. The energy they released while cultivating last night serves as the nourishment I need to grow stronger. Consider it a debt of gratitude the village chief owes you. With the severe storms and calamities this year, you surely do not wish to see these twin sisters freeze to death, do you? I leaned against the doorframe, listening to the elderly man drone on, and shrugged helplessly. I first invited the three of them into the house, fetched more charcoal to add to the fire basin, placed it in the center of the room, and then poured 3 cups of hot water, setting them upon the table. Young Qin Ran, you are aware that during this Great Fang Mountain winter, times are difficult, and these are the relatives of an official who was stripped of his rank and exiled here. No one in the village is willing to take them in. They cannot afford to feed the young, and these are young ladies from high society who have never performed farm labor. He looked regretfully at the young woman clad in the black robe. This child is not yet 20. She could have achieved greatness, but her dantian was destroyed, leaving behind a lingering illness. Her body is fragile, and her inner strength is fading. I know your situation is difficult as well, having just lost your parents and being in poor health, but you are the only one in the village with surplus grain. Just help them survive this winter. Consider it a virtuous deed. I narrowed my eyes slightly, my fingers tapping rhythmically against the table. Seeing this, the other 3 people in the house grew immensely tense. Very well, in the end I simply could not bring myself to refuse. Could I truly stand by and watch them freeze to death? With that thought, I agreed. A cold mechanical voice suddenly echoed in my mind. Ding, system activated. The Lin Qingyue system reminds the host, for every qualified wife married, you shall receive a divine ability. A potential cultivation partner meeting the system's standards has been detected. Lin Qingyue, Lin Qingyue. Upon accepting the 2 young women and triggering the system, I stood frozen, and once I regained my composure, I hurriedly spoke. I let out a soft cough, attempting to appear calm. Village chief, since you have spoken to this extent, if I were to refuse, it would appear that I am being unreasonable. These 2 sisters may stay at my residence for 10 days. That would be for the best. The village chief beamed with joy. Listen to the advice of this old man, he said. The 3 of you living well day to day is what matters most. Since that is settled, I shall take my leave. The old man finished his sentence, and without giving me a chance to even open my mouth to keep him, he disappeared entirely. Lin Qingyue's pale slender hand tugged at the hem of the other girl's garment. The 2 of them stood obediently in the corner, watching me as I sat deep in thought at the table, heads bowed, not daring to even breathe loudly. At this moment, a blue system interface manifested before my eyes. Host, Qin Ran, mortal body suffering from grave injuries, inferior bone roots, cultivation base entirely vanished. Detected acceptance of Lin Qingyue. Lin Qingyue has obtained the innate divine ability, Communion and Moon Essence Grade 2. Communion grants proficiency points and evolution points. When cultivating, returns will be multiplied many times over. Performing martial arts techniques enhances the Moon Essence cultivation base. Conduct divination several times daily. Scout the distribution of resources within the region. Provide risk warnings and protect your position. Communion covers all Dao companions centered around the host, and even the host himself. The same multiplier return rate remains in effect. Furthermore, proficiency points and evolution points will be returned multiplied. Current multiplier is 5 times. Detected Dao companion, Lin Qingyue, former Blood Essence Realm martial artist, received evolution points, 5-fold return 100 points. Young Master Lin Qingyue called out softly, interrupting my shock. As I stared at the system interface, I pulled back my wandering thoughts and looked at the 2 sisters. Before the words could leave my lips, I saw Lin Qingyue beginning to unfasten her robe and belt. Young Master, let me serve you so that you may rest. Lin Qingyue lowered her head. Her voice was gentle. As I watched Lin Qingyue untie her waistband before me, my mind instantly went blank. It is the dead of winter, even with the charcoal brazier lit inside, doing this would easily lead to catching a chill. The girl's thin outer robe slipped down, revealing shoulders and collarbones as pale and flawless as jade. Her body trembled as she whispered, Young Master took in the 2 of us. Such a great kindness is beyond words. If Young Master does not find us unworthy, we sisters are willing to serve you, only praying that you treat my younger sister well. Hearing this, I was caught between laughter and tears, setting aside the fact that it was still broad daylight. With my current frail and weakened constitution, I truly lack the fortune to enjoy such pleasures right now. Put your clothes back on and stand up. But young master, besides this, we truly have nothing left to offer. The young woman's beautiful eyes dimmed with despair. Was this destined to happen? Perhaps, but not at this moment. Stand up first. Acting in such a manner makes me appear like the local tyrants and bullies on the street. Rubbing my forehead with a bitter smile, I waved my hand. Of course, while now is not the time, that did not stop me from casting a few more glances. After all, they are both destined to be my wives in the future. What harm is there in taking a peek beforehand? I carefully assessed Lin Qingyue. I couldn't help but marvel at how voluptuous this young woman truly was. Speaking of her generous proportions, I wonder, do all the daughters of noble houses in ancient times possess such impeccable figures? Just as my thoughts began to wander, Lin Qingjiao's movements came to a halt. She stood stunned, a flicker of confusion crossing her eyes. She seemed unable to comprehend why I would refuse. In her understanding, the kin of a disgraced family who have fallen to this point possess only one. There was only myself. But hearing the gravity in my tone, Lin Qingjiao resigned herself to wrapping her clothes tightly, pulling Lin Qingyue, who was still cowering within her black cloak. She looked at me. Many thanks for the young master's great kindness. Lin Qingyue, who had remained silent until now, also stirred. Following her sister, she slightly bent her knees, her small head bowing lower beneath the black cloak, emitting a sound so faint it was barely audible, like the buzz of a mosquito. Thank you, young master. I looked at the tiny creature huddled in the black cloak, afraid to face others, and was just about to speak, when suddenly, a stomach growl unexpectedly erupted from Lin Qingyue. In the quiet house, the sound was exceptionally clear. Young master, please forgive me. I beg for your punishment. Lin Qingyue shrank further into her black cloak, unable to curl into a smaller ball. Even that oversized black cloak could not conceal the overwhelming shame she felt. I was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. Is it not just hunger? It is fine. The fault is mine for being negligent. The two of you have traveled a long distance and must be famished. Just sit here and wait a moment. I will prepare some food and return shortly. Lin Qingjiao's heart was filled with complex emotions. She wished to assist, but feeling helpless, she awkwardly stood in the middle of the room with her sister. In the kitchen, I took a bowl, opened the lid of the jar to scoop out a large portion of rice, then stood on my tiptoes to take down a piece of salted meat hanging from the rafters, conveniently plucking a few fresh vegetables along the way. Just as I was preparing to cook, I turned my attention toward the cinnamon tree within my sea of consciousness, specifically the second innate divine ability. The moon blossom had been interrupted earlier by Lin Qingjiao's intrusion, and I had yet to examine it properly. As I absorbed more information regarding this ability, despite having already experienced the baptism of the Jade Pool divine ability, I could not help but lose my composure. Moon blossom, daily divination to assess resource distribution in the surrounding area, warn of danger, and protect one's position. The current range covers Qingshan village and its immediate vicinity, a radius of 10 miles. I watched as the moon blossom cinnamon tree in my sea of consciousness trembled slightly, casting down 4 beams of moonlight. The overall fortune for today: small auspiciousness. Specifically, on the northern slope of Qingmao Mountain, there is an elk that has blundered into the snow and died. Before the sun sets, there is still time to reap the rewards. Xiaoji, a herd of roe deer, has appeared west of Qingmao Mountain. Take your bow and arrow and try your hand at hunting. Xiaoji, the widow Li in the village, is currently home alone. If you seize the opportunity, who knows, you might just become the most accomplished kept man in the region. Da Shang. There is a tiger king 400 miles to the northeast. How long will it be until you depend on that brute? At present, one could smoothly maneuver through the crowd and offer a quick meal to Lord Shanjun. To be honest, the utility of this divine ability is far greater than I anticipated. It is no different from toggling a wall hack to see through everything. After digesting all the intelligence gathered, I opened the novice gift package with great anticipation. The host has received 2 vials of body tempering elixirs and 2 vials of wound healing elixirs. Only 4 vials of medicinal pills in total, but all of them are useful to me. Forget it. Let us set this aside for now. Allowing them to eat a proper meal first is the priority. Kindling the fire, washing the rice, and slicing the meat. Though my movements were somewhat clumsy due to this frail body, the clay pot was soon set upon the hearth. Very quickly, the pure fragrance of white porridge blended with the savory aroma of meat to permeate the space. Outside the kitchen, beneath a layer of black cloaks, Lin Qingyue's small nose could not help but twitch as she sniffed the air. Her eyes darted about constantly, and she stood on her tiptoes, peering into the kitchen with an expression of hunger. The porridge was cooked to a thick consistency, the rice grains blossomed perfectly. The thinly sliced meat and chopped green vegetables were divided into 2 plates. In the midst of this freezing winter, this was a meal that would make anyone's mouth water. Come over and eat. Lin Qingjiao was still hesitating, but Lin Qingyue, beneath her black cloak, had already instinctively taken a small step forward upon smelling the food. Seeing me looking at her with a gentle smile, the little girl gathered her courage and plopped down onto the wooden chair. I pushed a bowl of porridge directly in front of her, added a generous portion of meat, and turning to Lin Qingjiao I said, "Eat. If it cools, the flavor will be lost." Lin Qingjiao offered her thanks. She then sat down cautiously, waiting for me to pick up my chopsticks before the two of them finally began to eat. As I ate, I observed the summary information panels of the 2 women. Taoist companion Lin Qing, Qi guiding breathing technique cultivation progress, level 6 15%. Taoist companion Lin Qingyue, Qi guiding breathing technique cultivation progress, level 4 41%. Seeing Lin Qingyue's stats, I furrowed my brows slightly. Damn it. How is it possible for the cultivation progress to be a negative number? According to the original owner's memories, this great Gan world is one where such things exist. Martial artists are capable of cultivating their own bodies to possess supernatural strength, starting from physical conditioning and the regulation of breath. The first realm is the blood key realm, which requires a specialized cultivation manual to forge the flesh, tendons, and bones in coordination with a breathing technique. This allows one to integrate the natural essence of heaven and earth with their own blood and qi. The The sign of entering the initial stage of the Blood Key realm is mastering a breathing technique to the point of minor success. A single strike must possess a force of at least 300 caddies. Breathing techniques are extremely rare. Almost all are held by the imperial government and the great aristocratic clans. The qi-guiding breathing technique that Lin Qingyue and Lin Qingyue practice is the most common variety on the market. Its efficiency is incredibly slow and its power is unremarkable. Its only advantage is that it leaves behind no lingering side effects. It is said that the royal family intentionally released this path so as not to drive the common people to a dead end. As for the second realm, the original owner's memories were rather vague. I only know that one can condense blood and qi into a more advanced form of power capable of projecting energy to pierce through the body. This meal was finished very quickly, in less than a minute. The food on the table had been completely devoured by the three of us. I consider myself a rather thrifty person, but seeing the bowls of the two sisters cleaned so thoroughly they looked washed, I could only sigh that there is always someone better than oneself. Just as I was about to speak, a thunderous pounding suddenly erupted at the door, intermingled with coarse profanity. "Open the door, damn you! I already know everything about what you've done. You have truly grown daring." Upon hearing this, my gaze turned icy. So this individual has decided to show up at my doorstep now. The scheme to take everything for yourself has already vanished like smoke, hasn't it? Qin, my cousin, has always been fond of taking advantage of others since I was a child. When my parents were still alive, he would frequently come to our home to leech off us. Ever since my parents met with disaster and the original owner was left bedridden with severe injuries, half a month later, Sam brought his son Tan Vien over again, under the guise of visiting his nephew. In reality, his gaze never once strayed from my possessions. He eyed the valuable items and land deeds in the house, even dropping hints and asking where I had hidden the sword manual. Last time, he had even used the pretense of offering help to pilfer 2 new items. Later on, he even complained to the neighbors that Tan Yin would not live for much longer, claiming that those dozen acres of land would eventually be left uncultivated, and that he would simply step in to assist with the farming when the time came. The original owner of this body, weak and often bedridden, had been coaxed and deceived into handing over personal treasures several times. Now, as time continued to pass, Tantu's actions grew increasingly shameless, clearly waiting patiently for the original owner to die so he could seize the family estate. And now he had even arrived at my doorstep. Even with one's eyes closed, it was easy to guess his intentions. He must have surely heard the latest news about me. Sensing that his schemes were crumbling, he could no longer sit still. Lin Qingyue heard the commotion and instinctively stood up, her eyes filled with visible apprehension. "It is fine," I told her. "The two of you stay inside to rest and keep warm. That will suffice." The thunderous pounding on the door grew louder and more insistent. Interspersed with the sound was the shrill, grating voice of a woman. "Tanyan, you heartless wretch with a cursed life, open the door at once. If your parents knew you had turned out to be such an unfilial son, they would surely be so enraged they would rise from their graves." That was Zhao Shi, the shrewish and long-winded concubine of Tantu. My eyes turned cold and predatory as I marched toward the door. With a loud slam, the courtyard gate was thrown wide open. Outside, amidst the biting wind, stood 2 figures whose faces were twisted with impatience and malice. They peered at me, their breath visible in the freezing air. Tantu was around 40 with a gaunt frame and puffy, swollen eyes. His shifty, triangular eyes darted about, betraying his calculating nature. His wife, Zhao Shi, was stout and broad-shouldered, standing with hands on her hips, embodying the very image of a bitter, vixen-like woman. I silently appraised her, concluding that this woman possessed at least half the physique of a professional powerlifter. Having taken so much of our provisions, it was clear they'd all been turned into fat and deposited into her belly. Upon seeing me open the door, the foul expression on Qin's face instantly froze. He clearly did not expect a sickly person like me to open the door with such speed. Right before my eyes, he immediately showcased the talent of a master at changing his demeanor. Qinzi wiped his face with his hands and squeezed out a few tears, assuming the posture of an elder overwhelmed with grief and sorrow. "Nephew, your parents have been laid to rest in the belly of a fierce beast. Their bones are not yet cold. By all accounts, you should be a model of filial piety. But what of you? What have you done? Today you have brazenly brought 2 women into this house, and they are the kin of disgraced officials, no less. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? You are about to drag the reputation of our Qin clan through the mud. Listen to me. Expel those 2 women from this house at once. After this is settled, you need not worry about the house being empty or desolate. To better facilitate the recovery of your injuries, our entire family, your 4th uncle's household, shall move in here to take care of you. After all, we are all of the same kin." I stared at him, my expression practically screaming, "Give me your house," across Qin's face. I let out a soft scoff and calmly uttered a single phrase, "You fool." My words caused Qin's mind to momentarily stall, as if his brain had ceased to function. A man like him, who has never even stepped foot inside a private school, could not possibly comprehend the weight of those 2 characters, yet he sensed vaguely that it was nothing pleasant. Zhao Shi, standing to the side, did not understand it either, but seeing that Qinzi had finished playing the benevolent role, she immediately stepped in to play the villain. "You shameless degenerate, corrupting the family legacy. In these times of disaster and famine, you act like a wealthy master, keeping freeloaders and idlers. I will leave you with these words today. If you do not drive those 2 women away, Then from this day forth, do not bother acknowledging your aunt or your fourth uncle. Whatever troubles may befall your household, do not expect anyone from the clan to step forward and assist you. I let out a derisive laugh. My parents are dead, back when I was bedridden from my severe injuries. Aside from the village chief, the apothecary from the county, and a few friends from the academy, who else within the clan ever offered me a shred of help? Uncle, have you ever even offered me half a bowl of rice? Or perhaps, have you, grandfather and grandmother, ever spared a single coin to summon a physician for me? The two of you may take your leave now. The weather is frigid, and I have no intention of keeping you here to swallow the northwest wind. Having said that, I took a step back, gripped the door handle, and slammed the courtyard gate shut with a thunderous force. Bang! The thick wooden door emitted a heavy, dull reverberation. It completely severed any connection to the two faces outside, now contorted in a mixture of fury, shock, and utter disbelief. A bitter, icy gale carried snowflakes that lashed directly against the faces of Qin Si and his wife. They stood rooted to the spot, staring at one another in wide-eyed confusion, unable to believe that the Qin Ran they once knew, the one who was somewhat weak-willed, considered gentle, and even prone to being bullied, had by this day transformed into an entirely different person. Very well, you little wretch. Just you wait, I shall keep my eyes on you to see exactly how long your arrogance can endure. Taking those two burdens with you, I wonder, how exactly do you intend to survive this winter? When the time comes, do not blame me for my cruelty, even if you crawl to my feet to beg for mercy. Let me tell you this, your younger cousin has already been recruited into the army to train as a martial artist. Once he secures a glorious future for himself, there will not even be a crumb of his fortune left for you to claim. After his tirade, he pulled Jiaoxi away, and they vanished hastily into the driving snow. Inside the courtyard, I leaned my back against the door, humming a tune as I made my way back into the house, where I caught sight of Lin Qingyue, who had been waiting right by the entrance, her beautiful eyes filled with unmistakable anxiety. We have brought you more trouble, young master. None of this concerns those two. I waved my hand dismissively as I walked indoors, my expression calm. Even without those two, they would have simply concocted another pretext to cause a disturbance. There are certain types of people who, the more you show them softness, the more they will presume upon your kindness. Qingyu, come here. I turned to look at Lin Qingyue, who was helping me fasten my black cloak. A sudden stirring in my heart prompted me to speak gently. Hearing this, Lin Qingyue obediently, his youthful fair face was etched with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. I withdrew a white porcelain vial from within my robes. Having just acquired it from the beginner's gift package, I pulled out the stopper and poured out a pill the size of a dragon's eye. It was silvery white and emitted a faint, refreshing aura. According to the system's description, this healing pill was capable of refining one's physique, purging impurities, and mending all manner of injuries. For a trivial wound such as mine, it would certainly be more than sufficient. However, Lin Qingyue's dantian had been crippled. This healing pill would surely be of great benefit to her. Try consuming this medicinal pill. Perhaps it might be the key to mending your dantian. These few words alone caused Lin Qingyue's fingers to tremble violently. Hailing from an aristocratic family, she possessed extraordinary knowledge and understood clearly that a pill capable of healing such a grave injury was immensely precious, a treasure that 100 taels of gold could not hope to purchase. Upon hearing those words, Lin Qingyue suddenly raised her head, a glimmer of desperate longing piercing through the mist in her eyes. She had been tormented by the agony of her crippled dantian for far too long, for so long that her heart had grown cold, and she had even harbored thoughts of ending her own life. Now that a solution was finally within reach, how could she not be stirred by such immense hope? With a naturally gentle disposition, she felt no suspicion toward me. She extended her small, pale hand and carefully, cautiously accepted the medicinal pill. As the pill touched her palm, it felt cool to the touch, and its refreshing aura invigorated her spirit. The young girl cast a glance at me, and then, filled with burgeoning hope, she placed the pill into her mouth. The pill dissolved upon contact, releasing a sweet, cooling liquid that flowed down her throat and instantly transformed into streams of pure energy that surged through her meridians. Lin Qingyue's body swayed slightly. Subconsciously, she crossed her legs and entered a meditative state. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, she suddenly coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of clotted blood. Witnessing this scene, I nodded with satisfaction. It was clearly effective. As Qingyue opened her eyes, she instinctively felt the changes taking place within her dantian. The stinging pain was gone, and the burning sensation had vanished. All that remained was a warmth she had not felt in an age, a tidal wave of immense joy rising to wash over her. It left the young girl standing there, stunned and motionless. She could only stare blankly at her own hands, then touch the corner of her robe in disbelief. My deepest thanks, young master. After a long while, following the jubilation of Lin Qingyue, Lin Qingyue finally regained her composure. It is good that you have recovered. If you truly wish to thank me, then once you take off that cloak, make sure you eat your fill. With Lin Qingyue's condition resolved, my heart finally eased. I arranged for the two sisters to settle down and rest in the guest wing. Young master, as we reside in this house, is there anything we can do to be of service? Hearing this, I was momentarily taken aback. After recalling the prompts from the system, I replied, for the moment, there is little I require your assistance with. Your only task while you are here is to cultivate the qi-refining breathing technique to strengthen your bodies and strive to enter the blood energy realm as soon as possible. In truth, a long time ago, A fortune teller cast a divination for me, claiming that the wives who would eventually cross the threshold of my home would be blessed, possessing immense heaven-defying talent for the Tao. If I simply allow you both to focus on your cultivation, even if I only eat and drink, I will surely become a formidable martial artist. Even as I spoke these words, I felt they were somewhat dishonest, but I could hardly explain the inner workings of a system to two girls from an ancient era. Rest assured, young master, my sister and I will certainly devote ourselves to diligent practice, so that one day it will be our turn to look after you. Young master, are your words truly the truth? Must we only focus on our cultivation? Lin Qingyue gently patted the back of the child's hand, then asked, Certainly. I give you my word, young master. Qingyu and I will cultivate with diligence, and we shall not fall short of your expectations. Furthermore, should you require anything, young master, please do not hesitate to command us. That goes without saying. Since you have stepped through the gates of my estate, you are naturally part of this family. There is no need for such rigid formalities. Having spoken, I offered a few final instructions before returning to my chambers, preparing to rely on medicinal elixirs to address the internal injuries plaguing this body. A member of the family, you say? Inside the room, I produced the healing elixir, shaking out a single pill that was perfectly round, smooth, and radiating a dense, vibrant vitality. Oh, my body immediately erupted with a surging heat. Had the system not explicitly labeled this as a healing elixir, I might have mistaken it for something intended for far more scandalous purposes. I chuckled at myself and swallowed the pill immediately. Once in my stomach, the elixir transformed into a massive yet remarkably gentle surge of heat, rapidly diffusing through my organs and viscera. The internal injuries and lingering hidden damage embedded in the limbs and meridians of the original owner were being mended at high speed under the nourishment of this medicinal force. After the time it takes to brew a pot of tea, I sensed that although I was still weak, the body had fundamentally recovered almost entirely. A smile curled the corners of my lips. I told myself that at present, it was still quite early before nightfall. It happens to align perfectly with the intelligence I received. I shall venture out and see if I can hunt down some game. Just as I was gathering my belongings to prepare for my departure, a cold mechanical voice from the system resonated directly in my ears. Wife Lin Qingyue is practicing the qi-guiding breathing method. Proficiency points +5. Wife Lin Qingyue is practicing the qi-guiding breathing method. Proficiency points +13. It seems that whenever they complete a cycle of the great circulation, I gain proficiency points. Furthermore, Qingyue's cultivation efficiency is truly far superior. It is no wonder she is heralded as a genius. I pondered for a moment, then pulled two ancient texts from beneath the bed, the qi-guiding breathing method and the Azure sword technique. The system's notification sounded immediately. Qi-guiding breathing method can expend proficiency points to upgrade. Azure sword technique can expend proficiency points to upgrade. Cultivation manuals capable of deduction detected. Minimum cost is 50 evolution points. I thought for a moment and decided to first test the efficacy of the proficiency points, as they are. I decided to allocate my proficiency points directly into the breath technique. In the blink of an eye, a surge of spiritual energy erupted within my body. My muscles grew more resilient and my vitality churned unceasingly. The entire process felt incredibly invigorating. It turns out that proficiency points are not merely numbers to be added. My physical constitution is also growing in unison. Even though I have not been actively cultivating, I have been making progress entirely thanks to the sisters Qingjiao. Is this truly the power of an automatic cultivation system? This is marvelous, but the hour grows late. I cannot afford to waste the guidance of the moonlight. Matters regarding martial techniques can wait until I return. I ground some ink and spread out paper, leaving a brief letter for the two sisters, then pulled a wooden chest from beneath the bed. Inside the chest lay a complete set of gear, a back-mounted saber, a reinforced bow, a cowhide sword sheath, an old sheepskin coat, and several rope traps. I donned the sheepskin coat, strapped on the saber and wooden bow, gathered my rations, and pushed open the courtyard gate. A gust of wind immediately lashed against my face. I turned back to bolt the door shut and strode purposefully toward Qingmao Mountain. The snow had gathered thick on the village path, and the villagers who saw me equipped to the teeth all cast looks of astonishment in my direction. Some whispered in hushed tones, while others looked on with pity. They likely assumed those two women had been completely bewitched by me. I paid them no mind and continued forward, following the path illuminated by the moonlight. The outskirts of Qingmao Mountain had long since been trampled bare by hunters. Deep in the memories of the original owner, the route was etched clearly. Otherwise, I would never have dared to venture into the treacherous mountain paths. The snow reached my knees. Had I possessed the weak constitution of the past, I would have collapsed long ago. However, I now recalled the 18 proficiency points I had just acquired and immediately poured them, along with my previous points, into the breath technique. As I added the points, the strength within my body surged continuously, allowing me to traverse the mountain road as easily as if I were walking on flat ground, a testament to the automatic cultivation of the Ranzhou Miao technique. About the time it takes to brew a pot of tea later, I arrived at the pine forest on the mountainside. I searched meticulously until I suddenly discovered a wild pheasant nestled in the snow. Its neck was twisted. It had clearly crashed headfirst into a tree trunk. My luck had opened with a flourish. I lifted it, estimating it to weigh at least 6 or 7 jin. My dinner for this evening is secured. I shoved the pheasant into my sack and continued my search through the surrounding area. Drawing upon the original owner's memories, I used my saber to clear away the snow and debris. To my surprise, hidden within a sheltered ravine, I discovered over 10 wild herbs, weighing roughly 2 or 3 caddies. A stroke of good fortune. After securing them, I continued toward the western ridge. I soon discovered signs of roe deer activity, winter hoof prints, and bite marks. The droppings were fresh, there was at least a small herd nearby. I did not rush to pursue them. With my current archery skills, the probability of a successful direct hunt is quite low. I must first return and practice my marksmanship at the martial arts training ground. If I were to scare off the herd recklessly, the loss would be too great. I located a well-worn game trail and used my saber to cut several flexible, sturdy branches. Using rope, I set up 6 snare traps. Whether I get to enjoy a feast depends on the will of the heavens. I brushed the snow from my hands. Looking up, I saw the sky had begun to dim with the coming twilight. The snowy wind seemed to grow more ferocious by the moment. I began to descend the mountain, retracing the footprints I had left earlier. Although I did not personally hunt a roe deer, the wild pheasant and medicinal herbs were unexpected joys. The traps I set make me anticipate that my harvest from this excursion will be quite bountiful. Isn't this fellow supposed to be on the verge of death? Instead of staying home to await his end, what is he doing climbing up the mountain? This fellow is truly something. Tanguy's luck is certainly not bad. Seeing the bulging sack in his possession, Qin Ran lay prone in the snow, staring intently at the bag, his greed barely concealed. His father, the fourth uncle, was currently pulling strings to secure him a position in the army, spending a significant amount of wealth to navigate the internal politics, and even if he succeeded, he would still struggle to make ends meet. After all, since he was already taking advantage of the situation, a little more would not hurt. Being kinsmen taking care of one another is only natural. Thinking this, Qingyue crawled to his feet and slowly approached me, feigning an accidental meeting. I stepped through the thick snow, making my way down the mountain. My mood excellent. This trip had not only solved my food shortage but also verified the heaven-defying nature of my divine ability. Under the influence of the 5-fold increase in cultivation points, my physique and vitality had grown significantly. The frail body of the past is now capable of enduring such arduous treks across mountains and streams. It is truly a night and day difference compared to before. As I was deep in thought, wondering whether to prepare braised pork or wild forest chicken for dinner, a shrill, piercing voice rang out from ahead. I wondered who it was, and here you are. Have your bones finally recovered their strength? To think you are already able to wander up the mountain. I raised my head to see a man wearing a ragged, oversized cotton jacket, a youth with triangular eyes that radiated a roguish air blocking the middle of the path. This was the only son of fourth uncle Qin Yuan. Much like his father, he was a shiftless scoundrel who lived by stealing and swindling. I curled my lip. I had just been cursing his parents, and here he was, delivering himself to my doorstep. In my memories, this Qin Yuan had followed in his parents' footsteps, coming to my home to extort us more times than I could count. Look at him. His eyes are still locked firmly onto my sack. Such petty intentions are obvious enough for even a dog to see, so I couldn't be bothered to pay him any mind and prepared to walk past him. Qin Yuan saw that I refused to acknowledge him, and he stared unblinkingly at the heavy sack, his eyes gleaming with greed. With heavy snow sealing the mountains, finding food was a mark of true capability. It mattered not whether it was scavenged or hunted. The priority was to claim it for oneself. He immediately put on a hypocritical, greasy smile and hurried closer. Cousin, what kind of good fortune have you stumbled upon? To have secured so many good things. Judging by that heavy sack, it's enough to last you several meals, isn't it? Look at me, your younger cousin. Coming up the mountain in this freezing weather, and I haven't found so much as a fart. I'm so hungry my stomach is practically touching my spine. As blood brothers, shouldn't we share in the good fortune? Give me half of what you have. I'll make sure to put in a good word for you in front of your parents later. As he spoke, he reached out a hand, intending to grab my sack. I did not retreat, instead shifting my body to evade him. I glanced at him as one would look at a fool. My belongings, on what grounds should I share them with you? You are nothing but a dim-witted fool. Or is it because this trash is crippled in both limb and body? Have you not taken enough advantage already? Do you truly believe that your display of false kindness goes unnoticed by everyone? Tan Vian was stunned. The artificial smile on his face instantly stiffened. Tan Yin, this person has become quite arrogant, has he not? To dare speak to me in such a tone. I am your cousin. It is only right that you show me respect by handing over your belongings. Do not refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Consumed by shame and rage, he stepped forward, intending to strike. In his eyes, even if my body had recovered slightly, my strength could never compare to one who had undergone formal cultivation. With the breathing techniques of the military, he believed he could easily snatch the bag away. With heavy snow sealing the mountains and the authorities neglecting their duties, who would bother to seek justice for someone like me? In these times, might makes right. A blooming, radiant smile spread across Tan Vian's face, yet the moment his hand reached out, a cold, sharp blade pressed against his throat in the blink of an eye. Tan Vian's movements froze instantly, as if the blood in his veins had turned to ice. He could clearly feel the pulse in his carotid artery throbbing against the edge of the blade. Withdraw your filthy hand, dare to move even an inch, and see what happens. After all, few people traverse these mountains. Even if I were to end you right here, no one would be the wiser. Tan Vian was so terrified that his soul seemed to leave his body. His face turned deathly pale, drained of all blood, and cold sweat soaked through his inner robes. He trembled violently as he stared at the blade mere inches away, and the hollow, emotionless gaze of his opponent. An unprecedented sense of terror gripped his heart. Could this truly be the sickly, useless wretch that anyone could bully, the Tanyan he once knew? You dare. Stop, do not strike, cousin. Let us talk this over slowly. It is my fault. It is my fault. Is that not enough? Scram. I glanced toward the distance, where several hunters were preparing to descend the mountain. Suppressing my killing intent, I spat out the single word and withdrew the blade. Tan Vian, as if granted a reprieve, scrambled backward in a panic. After a few steps, he clutched the shallow, bleeding scratch on his neck, his heart still pounding with lingering fear, though it was quickly replaced by humiliation and resentment. Despite his trembling heart, he maintained a fierce front, pointing a finger at my face and spitting out venomous words. Very well, Tan Yin. You dare draw a blade on me? Just you wait. I will return and tell grandfather and grandmother everything. I will have them demand justice for this, and we shall see how long you can maintain such arrogance. Do not even dream of monopolizing this plot of land. The land deed and the swordsmanship heritage that your parents left behind. Once finished, he feared I might pursue him, so he tucked tail and fled down the mountain without ever looking back. He is no match for me in combat, yet he is remarkably swift when it comes to running away. Watching the direction in which Qin Yuan had just vanished, I shook my head, thinking of my grandfather and grandmother, the two elders from my memories. Ever since the fourth uncle's family gave birth to their son, Qin Yuan, their hearts had completely tilted in his favor. After all, the fourth uncle's family circumstances were wealthier, often providing grain. Since the passing of my parents, and with the original owner of this body suffering heavy injuries, the number of times the two elders visited could be counted on one hand. And every time they came, their words were ostensibly about helping the fourth uncle figure out how to care for me, but in reality they were merely coveting the meager family inheritance I had left. This so-called fairness was nothing more than a reaction to hearing Qin Yuan complain that he had been bullied by me. When bias has reached such an extreme, there is no sense in speaking of fairness. If it truly comes to that, my blade may not necessarily be dull. I muttered to myself, sheathed my blade, and nodded toward the hunters who were staring in astonishment, offering them a brief greeting. Afterward, I shouldered my harvest and continued my journey home. As a dedicated connoisseur of fine food from Huaxia, I decided that tonight I would prepare a braised chicken feast, otherworldly style, to thoroughly satisfy my cravings. My proficiency points, having increased by 18, showed no further growth even after half an incense stick of time had passed. It seems they have finished their cultivation. I must return quickly. With that thought, I had already finalized my plans. Tonight, after a hearty meal, I will use my evolution points to refine my breathing technique. I wonder what surprises these evolution points will bring. Is this truly still my home? Pushing open the courtyard gate, I nearly thought I had walked into the wrong place. A breath of clean, refreshing air washed over my face. The courtyard, once chaotic and unkempt, was now significantly tidier. The fallen leaves had been swept to the sides, revealing a path lined with bluestone. The dilapidated fence had clearly been repaired as well. Though it was still nothing extraordinary at a glance, it was 100 times better than the pigsty-like state it was in before. The residence left behind by the original owner's parents was quite spacious, covering an area equivalent to 2 or 3 other households in the village combined. Back then, it cost over 100 taels of silver to purchase. Just after furnishing the property, they had not yet had the chance to renovate the outer courtyard. If one has already departed, it is difficult to cast blame. Why does fourth uncle continue to cast such prying eyes? I must find a way to properly renovate this residence. With the estate walls already standing tall, I shall now begin planning how to utilize the remaining vacant land. These are not safe times, not in the slightest. Who can say if the starving refugees or those from the neighboring villages might harbor malicious intent upon seeing me dwell within such a grand manor? Inside the room, Lin Qingyue was busy wiping down the tables and chairs with a rag. Lin Qingyue had her sleeves rolled up, sweeping the hidden corners with a broom. Her small face was flushed, and she softly blew on her hands to keep warm. Although their movements were a bit clumsy, they were diligent and thorough, showing no signs of neglect. Hearing the sound of the door opening, they stopped what they were doing and looked up to see me. Lin Qingyue hastily set down her rag and came to greet me, her beautiful eyes brimming with genuine concern. "Young master, was your journey up the mountain smooth?" Lin Qingyue also set down the broom, timidly hiding behind her sister, her clear eyes filled with curiosity. As the young girl shed her black cloak, revealing skin as fair as snow and delicate features like those of a porcelain doll, a sense of warmth welled up within me. It was fine. My luck was not bad, and I had some gains. "I have troubled you both. You have managed to make the house so clean and tidy." Unlike the gluttonous girl behind her who was staring intently at my spoils, Lin Qingyue first carefully examined me from head to toe. Seeing that I was truly unharmed, she let out a sigh of relief. "Young master, you are too kind. These are simply things we ought to do. Please go and rest. Leave these chores to us." She looked at the wild pheasant and wild vegetables in my hands, and although she wished to help, she was entirely inept at cooking and stood there momentarily at a loss. This place is their sanctuary as well. To be so overly polite only creates an unnecessary distance. From now on, leave the cooking to me. Having said that, I prepared to step into the kitchen, only under my slightly puzzled gaze, she nudged her small head toward my raised hand. But her height was a weakness. Even on her tiptoes, she still fell just short. "Young master, I want that too." I instinctively understood her intent. I placed my hand gently atop her head, brushing through her black hair, which framed her obsidian eyes. She clearly wore an expression of genuine delight. Only after a long moment did I retract my hand, offering a few words of instruction before stepping into the kitchen. Lin Qingyue tilted her head, watching my busy silhouette, feeling a sense of relaxation and peace she had never known before. Inside the kitchen, I skillfully boiled the water, then plucked and cleaned the wild fowl. The parents of the original host had coddled him, never allowing him to lift a finger in the kitchen, but I, a soul transmigrated from another world, was different. As a connoisseur seasoned by the era of information technology, my technique was second to none. My precise movements and clear steps left the two sisters, who were stealthily peeking from the doorway, utterly dazzled. The fowl was chopped into pieces, the greens were washed, and the wok was heated. I added a portion of lard to sauté the ginger slices and dried wild peppers until fragrant. I tossed the meat into the wok, stir-frying it over high heat. With a sharp sizzle, the two sisters at the doorway could not help but swallow their saliva. Once the meat was seared to a golden brown, I poured in fresh water. I added soy sauce and sea salt to season the broth. I covered the lid to allow it to braise. Meanwhile, I used an earthenware pot to wash the rice and set it to steam. By the time the rice was nearly finished, the sauce had thickened into a rich glaze. The meat was tender enough to fall off the bone. I ladled both the broth and the meat over the steaming rice, arranged the greens on the side, and simmered it for another moment until the hearty braised chicken rice was finally complete. Though it lacked the abundance of seasonings from the modern world, the ingredients were fresh and authentic, and the heat had been controlled to perfection. I rested my chin on my palm, observing the scene, feeling immense pride in my culinary prowess. A rich, intoxicating aroma began to escape from the edges of the pot, the fragrance of grain and meat mingling to fill the entire kitchen, wafting even out into the courtyard. The two sisters had never before encountered a scent so irresistible. Life within the Quan family estate was once refined, yet it rarely possessed the hearty, rustic warmth of a home-cooked meal. Even less so during the bitter days of poverty that followed their fall from grace. Without a word, the two of them drew closer to the stove. Eyes widened, staring intently at the earthenware pot as it bubbled vigorously. Lifting the lid, a sudden rush of steam and an intoxicating aroma washed over their faces. The rice grains were fluffy and golden, the chicken broth shimmered with a rich luster, and the chicken meat, a deep succulent red, was so tender it fell right off the bone, while the vibrant green vegetables made the dish impossible to resist. Let us eat. The two sisters enjoyed this meal with particular fervor, heads bowed as they scraped every last grain of rice from their bowls. Not a single scrap of meat remained. Lin Qingyue maintained her usual grace while eating, but the little one was quite different, unable to resist sticking out her tiny tongue, stealthily licking the broth that had gathered at the corner of her mouth. That innocent and adorable display nearly made me chuckle. I consumed the most as my frail body required significant nourishment compounded by the day's physical exertion and the natural Epicurean spirit of the Huaxia people. I polished off 2/3 of the pot myself, feeling significantly rejuvenated once the meal was done. The restlessness of my blood qi from the earlier point allocation had now begun to subside, weaving into my body fiber by fiber, constantly tempering my physique, though I remained a step away from the Minglian realm, the stage where one can truly command their own blood qi at will. After the meal, the two sisters vied with each other to clean the dishes. I teased them for a moment, instructed them to continue their cultivation, and returned to my chamber. Sitting cross-legged in meditation with a solemn expression, the time had come to utilize my evolution points to simulate the chi-guiding breathing technique and the azure sword art. With exactly 100 evolution points, a novice like me could finally broaden his horizons. I was eager to see what this so-called breathing technique truly entailed. I wished to witness the true nature of this breathing method. Settling my mind and spirit, I funneled 50 evolution points into the system, silently commanding it to simulate the chi-gutting breathing technique. No sooner had the words left my mind, my consciousness shuddered, pulled into an ethereal void where I observed myself undergo 58 years of simulated training. The chi-guiding breathing technique evolved into the violet chi tide method. An immense surge of information flooded my mind as I learned to capture the faint wisp of primordial violet chi at dawn and draw it into my body, condensing it into a violet cloud blood qi seed. It was capable of autonomous cultivation, its quality far surpassing that of ordinary techniques. Immediately thereafter, I proceeded to simulate the azure sword art. 58 years later, I finally grasped the art of transforming the spirit into a sword. Upon achieving the first stage of the heaven-wounding spirit sword, I gained the ability to manipulate earth and stone. By the later stages, a mere thought can condense these materials into ethereal swords, capable of manifesting countless blades in a single instant. As I finished my practice, dawn began to break, and I shifted my focus to a new cultivation manual, turning to face the east. As the horizon lightened, I drew a streak of primordial violet energy into my body, condensing it within my dantian to form the violet cloud seed, the foundation of the violet cloud morning mist technique. 3 months into my cultivation in the year 1000, the violet cloud seed had grown significantly. By actively guiding and refining the energy, my cultivation speed far exceeded that of a normal practitioner. However, in the very next moment, a gnawing hunger took hold of me. Although it was intense, I could still grit my teeth and endure it. It is no wonder that it is so difficult for a poor family to produce a martial artist. At this rate of consumption, one might hold out for a day or two, but over time, even the wealthiest household would likely be scraped bare. I once again activated the moonflower technique to survey the day's intelligence. The overall fortune for today is small auspicious. Small auspicious, south of Qingmao Mountain. In the downstream section of the small brook, the melting ice has washed away the silt, revealing a piece of mutton fat jade. It is of significant value and can be used to nourish one's blood and qi over the long term. Small auspicious. In the shallow trap set yesterday, I have caught a muntjac deer. It would be wise to retrieve it early. Average. Beneath the ruined brick wall of the Fei family's house on the west side of the village, there is a nest of plump mountain rats. They can be used to improve one's meal. Average. The landlord who recently moved into the village has a penchant for broken sleeves. He fancies men. If one wished to shorten their path to success by 100 years, they could use this fragrant body to trade for silver. The first 3 pieces of information are quite useful, but as for the last one, discard it immediately. Since it is still early, there is no need to rush up the mountain. Sharpening the axe will not delay the task of gathering firewood. I shall prioritize practicing the heaven-wounding spirit sword I just acquired. Young master, good morning to you. After a night of rest, the complexions of the 2 sisters had improved significantly. Lin Qingyue was no longer as timid and shy as before. She would occasionally steal glances at me. Whenever I looked her way, she would immediately lower her head, pretending as if nothing had happened. It was quite amusing. After exchanging a few words, I headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. The hunger was becoming increasingly ravenous, compounded by the fact that the 2 girls also required sustenance. I cooked 7 or 8 caddies of rice and a substantial amount of lean meat. I expended a considerable amount of energy last night. If you are not yet full, simply cook more. Remember, Qingyu, your dantian has only just recovered and requires a significant amount of nourishment. A moment later, the basin of rice and lean meat had been wiped clean. At this rate of consumption, our grain supply will only last another half-month, and our firewood for perhaps 20 days. It seems I must make a trip into the city within the next fortnight. This is a body-tempering pill. It is used to aid in cultivation. As for this archery manual, both of you should take it and practice. There is a short bow in the house. Lin Qingyue accepted it, a glimmer of light flashing in her beautiful eyes. Yesterday it was medicinal pills for healing, today it is pills for body tempering and a martial arts technique. Young master, why are you like a treasure chest? Young master, I thank you. Since you have entered our home, we are husband and wife, and from now on there is no need for such formalities. Upon hearing the words husband and wife, Lin Qingyue, who had been burying her face in her food, stole a glance at me. When I looked back at her, carrying a hint of amusement, she immediately lowered her head. I am not a man-eating beast. Is such a reaction truly necessary? After cleaning up, the 2 sisters began to study the parchment scroll. I took out 1 longbow and 2 short bows. Half an hour later, I discovered my wife, Lin Qingyue, was practicing. Proficiency points for the sky blue sword technique increased by 5. Furthermore, I discovered my wife, Lin Qingyue, was practicing the sky blue sword technique. Proficiency points increased by 12. Qingyue's talent for cultivation truly far surpasses that of her elder sister. The sky blue spirit sword technique has yet to reach the entry level, with progress at 36,100. I immediately added all my accumulated proficiency points into it. Raising the bow and knocking the arrow, movements that were once unfamiliar now felt incredibly natural. I aimed at the scar left by an old rat in the courtyard. Releasing the string, the arrow tore through the air and struck true, as per the sky blue spirit sword technique. Progress increased by 1. It appears that focusing on archery practice can increase progress. It is faster than waiting for the system to tally the girls' points. Beside me, Lin Qingyue stared at me, looking somewhat dazed. I asked her if she was running a fever. She flustered, quickly trying to regain her composure. Under my guidance, the 2 sisters began their training. I claimed the 40-plus proficiency points gained from their cultivation. Applying them to the Heavenly Spear Spirit Sword technique, my progress reached 34-1, unlocking the 10th form. Star Palace, ensuring 100 hits and 100 strikes. In a flash, knowledge of the sword merged into my mind, and the bones throughout my body emitted a crisp cracking sound. My strength had clearly surged significantly. Looking back at the breathing technique, Purple Mist Tide River, my progress stood at 45-3000. The mastery of the sword technique had inadvertently bolstered the advancement of the breathing method. I inspected my gear, the hunting bow and quiver, preparing to head into the mountains once more. The cold wind continued to howl, though the sky was slightly brighter than it had been 2 days prior. Once my preparations were complete, I headed to the village chief's house first. Is the village chief home? Little Qin Ran, are you here to scavenge for a meal so early? The old man turned to look at the young girl before lowering his voice and stepping closer to me. How is it? Are you finding it agreeable to live with those 2 young women? I was left speechless. Old man, stop with the idle chatter. I need to borrow the sled. I pointed toward the cart in the corner of the courtyard. I am preparing to head into the mountains for a major harvest. Take it yourself. The village chief scanned me from head to toe, adding, return it whenever you can. But be careful. The mountains are not as they usually are these days. I thank you. I hitched the sled. Oh, that's right. Yesterday your uncle's family was at your grandparents' place, causing a massive commotion until the middle of the night. He lowered his voice, although your grandfather is injured, and can no longer wield a blade to fight. He was, after all, a martial artist once. You must exercise caution. Thank you for the warning. I understood the situation clearly. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had anticipated. To think they are full-grown adults still playing these childish games of snitching. For now, enhancing my own strength remains the most solid foundation. Let them carry on with their posturing and agitation. I pulled the sled deeper into the heart of the mountains. The snow lay thick and heavy upon the ground. The runners of the sled carved deep furrows into the earth, emitting a rhythmic, grating sound. The icy wind bit into my skin like sharpened blades. Yet in my ears, the notifications of the system chimed incessantly. As I moved through the trees, the purple cloud morning mist technique circulated automatically. A single cycle of cultivation yielded 20 proficiency points. My wife was practicing with the body tempering pill. Proficiency points increased by 50, then by 56. I immediately allocated those proficiency points to my own cultivation. A gentle, warm current of energy instantly surged into my limbs, spreading throughout my meridians. My progress in the purple cloud morning mist technique reached 576 3000. With the mountain traveler technique increasing my growth, truly, a man with a virtuous wife has a treasure, and I am blessed with two. Half an hour later, I reached the western slope where I had set the traps the day before. My gaze swept across the snowfield, and I quickly detected something amiss. One of the snares had been triggered. The surrounding snow was in disarray, bearing clear marks of a frantic struggle. After carefully confirming that there was no immediate threat, I pushed aside the brush. Keeping a vigilant watch, I spotted a robust muntjac collapsed on the snow. The rope was cinched tight, biting deep into its flesh, and blood stained the pristine white snow a crimson red. Having struggled for so long, it was nearly exhausted. With a glance, I estimated this creature weighed over 100 caddies. Its entire body was covered in a thick, glossy coat for the winter. I stepped forward and struck, ending its suffering. I hoisted the muntjac onto my shoulders, placed it upon the sled, and secured it firmly. Only 2 days ago, this body was so frail it could barely stand. Yet now I carried this heavy prey without the slightest exertion. The speed of my cultivation progress was enough to astonish even me. It was indeed the Yangji warming jade. I took up my bow and arrows and searched the surrounding area thoroughly for another 20 minutes. After confirming there was nothing else to be gained, I pulled the sled toward my next objective. That was the southern slope of Qingmao Mountain, specifically the lower reaches of the small stream. Following the suggestions provided by the Yuehua system, a block of jade, exposed by the melting snow and washed downstream along the southern slope of the stream, is known as the Yangji warm jade. This object possesses the ability to nourish one's vital energy and blood. It is a peerless treasure for stabilizing the spirit. While the terrain of the southern slope is relatively flat, the snowdrifts there are significantly deeper. I searched carefully along the river bend, yet after quite some time I had yielded nothing. What could be the cause? Could it have been concealed beneath the ice? Or had someone else arrived first and snatched it away? Adhering to the principle that since I had already come this far, I expanded my range of perception, focusing my observation on the areas sheltered from the wind and facing the sun. There was a spring of groundwater seeping out along the riverbank. Behind a large boulder at the river's bend, the layer of accumulated snow was visibly thinner than the surrounding areas. The earth was damp, and faint wisps of steam even curled upward from within the crevices of the rocks. This must be the place. I set down my cart and used a shovel to carefully scrape away the mud and excavate the ice. The spot where my hands touched felt warmer than the surrounding environment. My fingertips brushed against a hard object which felt smooth and warm to the touch. I dug through the layer of soil. Each piece roughly the size of a duck egg, oval-shaped pieces of silvery white jade emerged before my eyes. Within them a soft glossy light seemed to flow. It was truly the Yangji warm jade. I tucked them securely against my body, feeling a warmth like a small furnace continuously nourishing my vital energy and blood. I sat cross-legged, carefully attuning myself to my internal state. In 3 days at most, combined with the proficiency returned to me, I shall be able to step into the blood energy realm. In the span of a mere few days, others would likely break their heads in despair without encountering such fortune. With both major objectives accomplished and the day still early, there was remaining space on the cart. I wandered around the area, observing the thick, jagged ice beneath my feet. There must be something beneath this river, must there not? If I were to remain idle and depend on luck, it would not be a sustainable path. To sit idle while exhausting one's resources is hardly a wise course of action. I walked to the center of the river, selected a spot where the ice was thick, and resolved to test the full might of my iron fist. At this moment, I channeled my breathing technique, concentrated my strength, and brought my right fist crashing down. Ice shards scattered in all directions, and immediately the layer of ice I struck developed cracks like a spider's web, forming a shallow, jagged crater. A series of deep, rhythmic thuds echoed through the air, shards of ice scattered as the cracks continued to widen. Finally, with a crisp, sharp snap, the thick layer of ice was shattered entirely. A hole roughly the size of a wash basin revealed the depths of the frigid water beneath. With each strike, I felt a growing sense of exhilaration, my spirit far from weary. Once this hole was cleared, I gathered dry brush from the bank, ignited a campfire with a fire starter, and placed a clay pot filled with snow over the flames. I can only hope the laws of this world mirror those of my past life. Pouring hot water into the ice hole should temporarily raise the local temperature and oxygen levels, effectively luring the schools of fish. Or so I surmised. While waiting for the water to boil, I took the prepared cordage and, utilizing the warmth of the fire, began to weave a simple fishing net. My technique could hardly be called refined, but it made up for this with sheer patience. 6 minutes later, the water began to boil, sending plumes of steam into the cold air. I carefully poured the scalding water around the perimeter of the ice hole and directly into the opening. As the boiling water met the icy depths, a thick white mist rose with a hiss, and I immediately cast the net into the hole. The tether was secured firmly to a sturdy stake on the bank, and I waited patiently as the minutes ticked by, watching the mist around the hole dissipate until the river returned to its dark, frozen state. About half a cup of tea later, a subtle, almost imperceptible vibration traveled up the cord into my hands, followed immediately by a violent tremor. Something had struck the net. I pulled it in with haste. The net emerged from the water, heavy and straining. I braced my arms, channeling my internal energy, and slowly hauled it onto the ice. A silver shimmer reflected the light. The net contained over a dozen fish of various sizes. They thrashed desperately. Slender bleak fish, grass carp, and even a carp nearly a foot long. Their scales glimmered, catching the fading light under the dim, wintry sky. Success. The school of fish beneath the ice had indeed been lured by the sudden warmth and the influx of oxygen. I swiftly emptied the catch into the wooden tub atop my cart. The fish flopped vigorously, brimming with life. Following the same method, I broke another hole further away, treated it with boiling water, and cast the net once more. This time, the weight was shorter and the harvest even more bountiful, with the net yielding 2 large fish weighing over 6 pounds each. They were silver carp. For the third and fourth time, I continued the labor of breaking the ice, pouring the water, and casting the net, never tiring of the process. After nearly 2 hours of relentless labor, the sky began to darken, and I finally ceased my work, not because I lacked the will to continue, but because the wooden basin on the sled could hold no more. Upon assessing my harvest, even I was somewhat astonished. The wooden basin was tightly packed with various types of fish, primarily crucian carp and grass carp, along with river shrimp, eel, and smelt. The total weight surely exceeded 120 jin. Combined with that muntjac weighing over 80 jin, the entire sled was stuffed to the brim. I rearranged the fish and covered them with a layer of snow to keep them fresh. With such a vast haul, I could dig a small pond in the courtyard to raise them. The vacant land to the east has suitable terrain. Being low-lying, it would not take much effort to dig a deep pond. At the very least, it must be deeper than a man's height to ensure the bottom does not freeze during the winter. The pond base should be layered with clay to prevent seepage, and I can channel mountain spring water or collect rainwater. Replenishing it with snowmelt until the spring temperatures rise will allow the fish to spawn naturally. By then, I can add aquatic plants and tree bark for the fish egg to adhere to and provide the fry with crushed wheat and soybean residue. Having so many variables to study and experiment with is enough to keep me occupied. Looking at the bountiful harvest, I hummed a tune while descending the mountain, but the commotion I caused upon reaching the village entrance far exceeded my expectations. It was twilight, and many villagers were preparing to return home. Upon seeing me in that incredibly extravagant hall, everyone stood frozen in stunned silence. Heavens above, is that Qin Ran? What is he pulling behind him? That is a muntjac. And that wooden basin is full of fish. One shout from an elder brought the entire crowd running to catch a glimpse. If they were to divide this, even selling the clothes off my back wouldn't be enough to get a share. How did he catch so many fish? That must be over 100 jin. Look, those fish in the basin are still alive. Indeed. Several hunters exchanged uneasy glances. Just a few days ago, Qin Ran was bedridden. How could he suddenly achieve such a feat? Some whispered with bitterness in their voices. Over a dozen villagers gathered around, murmuring and discussing. A few ruffians intended to step forward to take advantage of the situation, but upon seeing the heavy hardwood bough strapped to my back, they shrank back and abandoned their intentions. Cries of astonishment rang out one after another, never ceasing. In this frigid winter where food is scarce and expensive, this harvest of mine is enough to make any family green with envy. I paid no mind to those complex lingering gazes. I pulled the sled straight toward the village chief's store. Old man, open up quickly. See what fine goods I have brought for you. A moment later, the village chief hurried to open the door. Seeing the pile of meat, stacked like a small mountain and nearly blocking his gate, his entire body froze in place. His tobacco pipe fell with a clatter onto the snowy ground, and he stood with his mouth agape for a long while, unable to shut it. Qin lad, did you hunt all of this yourself? It was merely luck. I smiled. I scooped out 4 or 5 plump carp and a large silver carp from the wooden basin. I handed them over, tied with a straw rope, and added, I am indebted to your sled. Otherwise, I would never have been able to haul it all back. Take these fish and taste how fresh they are. How could I accept such a thing? It is too embarrassing. This is far too precious. Though his mouth offered words of refusal, his hands were already swift and dexterous, taking the straw rope from my grip. My smile stiffened. His speed in snatching the fish was even faster than my own. Qin Ran, lad. I knew that if you went, you would surely return with a harvest, but I never expected you to possess such great capability. This old man did not misjudge your character. Those 2 lasses will certainly not suffer by your side. Taking my leave of the village chief and pulling the pickles he had insisted I add to my remaining harvest, I made my way toward my small courtyard and the fruits of my hunt in the mountains. The news spread like a gale, reaching every corner of the village. Naturally, it fell into the hands of the Qinsi family. That little beast managed to secure an 80-catty deer, along with over 100 catties of live fish. When Qinsi heard the news brought by the neighbors, he leaped up from the earthen bed in excitement, his eyes wide, his voice cracking with intensity, his expression dark and ominous. It is 100% true. Everyone in the village saw that the cart was on the verge of collapsing under the weight. The freshwater fish were splashing in the tubs, covered in mud. The morsel of melon in Qinyuan's mouth instantly lost its flavor. Again deer, again fish. It seems living through this winter has become too comfortable for him. Is he intentionally trying to make our lives miserable? Father, mother, with that much meat, how long would it feed our family? We cannot allow him to consume it all alone. We must force him to hand it over. Grandfather and grandmother love you the most. Let us go and find them. Indeed. Go and find your grandfather. Qin Ran has gained such bounty but fails to show filial piety to his elders, caring only for himself and those two women. And as for the estate my elder brother left behind, it must be redistributed from the beginning. The family of three acted like starving wolves scenting blood, meticulously plotting how to extort as much profit as possible. Pushing open the courtyard gate, the familiar peace greeted them. Within the courtyard, Lin Qingyue was practicing her swordsmanship with precision, her form far more refined than it had been earlier that morning. Hearing the gate open, she immediately ceased her training and looked over, seeing behind me the deer and the large tubs of fish that nearly obstructed the entire path. She stood frozen in place, the green lotus palace nearly slipping from her grasp. Was it all really meat? Lin Qingyue, who had been cultivating inside, heard the commotion, and after circulating her cultivation technique, she halted her cycle immediately, leaping out like a startled fawn. Young master, she rushed directly into my arms. But as she looked up and saw the growing smile on my face, and then noticed her sister's look of astonishment, she became flustered. Forgive me, I have disturbed you. I mistook you for someone else. Sister, I still have matters to attend to. I shall take my leave now. I do not eat people, after all. I watched her retreat, shaking my head helplessly. Lin Qingyue, call Qingyu back out here. I have obtained a piece of warm yang jade. I shall divide it between the two of you. It will aid your cultivation, and there is another matter to attend to. While the sky has yet to darken completely, dig a pond in the courtyard to keep these fish, or they will not survive for long. I pressed the split pieces of warm jade into her hands. Lin Qingyue seemed to snap out of a trance, and after taking the warm jade inside, she quickly returned with Lin Qingyue, whose cheeks were flushed pink, her gaze shyly averting. I reached out and ruffled Lin Qingyue's neatly combed hair, pointing to the empty lot to the east. Dig the pond right here. Before the sun sets, let us finish the foundation at least. We shall follow your lead, young master, Lin Qingyue replied. Lin Qingyue, still reeling from the head pat, timidly nodded in agreement. I went to the tool shed, retrieved 3 iron shovels, marked a circle on the ground, and began the work. Thud, thud, thud. The shovels cut through the frozen earth as easily as a hot knife through butter. I pivoted, swinging the shovel. The muscles in my arms and abdomen taut. A slab of cold earth the size of a tabletop was flung aside. From one section of the hall to the next, the movements were so swift they left afterimages, all occurring within a dozen short breaths. A pit the size of a tabletop, deep enough to reach a person's waist, had now taken shape. The two sisters stared, completely stunned. Could this truly be the frail young master from 2 days ago? Do not just stand there staring. Lin Qingyue shoveled the loosened earth and tossed it aside. Lin Qingyue broke apart the large clods of soil, both of them finally snapping out of their trance and hurriedly setting to work. Lin Qingyue realized that even the loosened soil I had just turned was still heavy and taxing for her. Just how immense is the young master's strength, she muttered to herself in secret, unaware that this vitality was entirely thanks to them. Using the initial pit as the center, I expanded outward in all 4 directions with the ferocity of a gale. The sound of crumbling earth rang out incessantly by their ears. Wherever I passed, the ground gave way. The depth quickly surpassed knee height. Lin Qingyue, while breaking apart the large chunks of earth, looked at me as if I were some tireless beast of burden. Sister, look, he is just like a large plowing ox. How could you speak of your future husband in such a way? Lin Qingyue's delicate face flushed slightly red, and she cast a stern glance at her younger sister. As she gazed at the figure in the pit, her eyes were filled with profound shock. Could it be that, having encountered some miraculous fortune, his body has already recovered? Does this mean that he... She quickly shook her head, her face turning crimson with embarrassment. If that is truly the case, would it finally be appropriate to call him husband? The setting sun glanced over the courtyard wall, casting long, stretching shadows of the 3 of them. Surveying the neat pit now waist-deep before me, I drove the iron shovel firmly into the ground and brushed the dust from my hands. Sister, why is your face so red? Very well, that is enough for today. We have reached the 7th level. Tomorrow we shall line the basin with stone and channel the mountain spring water inside. The fish pond is finally ready for use. A project of this magnitude, Qingyu and I could barely offer any assistance. Yet young master completed the excavation in less than 2 hours as if he were a seasoned martial artist. It is truly hard to believe. Young master, may I ask, how long have you been cultivating? Just 2 days ago you were still extremely frail. How could you possess such abundant vigor now? It has likely been less than 2 days. I pondered for a moment. Besides, the breathing technique I cultivate is somewhat unique. It can only be practiced by myself. Otherwise, I would have already imparted it to the both of you. Less than 2 days, Lin Qingjiao's mind seemed to grind to a halt, yet she could see the overflowing vitality and the aura radiating from his body. To be on the verge of entering the blood-chi realm after only 2 days, this is even more bizarre than encountering a ghost. Young master, such a speed would be considered unimaginable even in the capital city. Qingyu herself was once on the verge of entering the Blood-Qi realm, but that was only with the support of talismans and the luxury of focusing solely on cultivation without any distractions. Yet looking at him now, her eyes were filled with profound shock. Could it be that what the young master said the other day was actually true? That as long as they cultivate, even by simply eating and drinking, one can grow strong. Very well, there is no need to be so astonished. Have you not been busy for long enough? Are you not hungry? Go home and rest first. I will handle the prey. Lin Qingyue finally regained her composure and went inside to tidy up, leaving me alone in the courtyard, gazing at the fish leaping about in the wooden tub. I pondered where to keep them. If I left them out, they would perish in less than an hour. My gaze swept across the courtyard, and I easily hoisted the 100-jin wooden tub, pouring both the fish and the water into a large, cleaned ceramic vat. Afterward, I handled the wild boar, hoisting it onto the flagstone to carefully and decisively carve it up. With this knife work, even without the blessing of a system, I could make a living as a butcher to support the entire household. I set aside over 20 jin of the tenderest leg meat and loin. I rubbed the remainder with sea salt, placed it into a ceramic jar, weighed it down with a heavy stone, and set it to dry. This supply of meat should last for quite some time. Though, once I break through to the Blood-Qi realm, that may change. The consumption of energy will be immense. I stretched my back. The sky had already darkened, the stars glistening in the cold night. I caught a glimpse of Lin Qingyue sleeping soundly at the table, while Lin Qingyue was still busy tidying up. I smiled and shook my head. I must hasten my pace, for I cannot keep them waiting too long. Stepping into the kitchen, I lit the oil lamp. Only ordinary rice remained, all because of my own gluttony. At this rate of consumption, I shall have to venture into the city to procure more supplies within a few days. My hands moved without pause, measuring the rice into the pot, adding spring water and covering it to boil. I thinly sliced the muntjac venison, tenderizing it with the back of my blade, chopped the tail meat into chunks, and retrieved 3 plump fish from the water basin, their flesh marbled with fat. I gutted and cleaned them, scoring their sides, everything prepared to craft a few signature family dishes to whet their appetites. In theory, our cultivation of vital energy is such that we could survive on raw meat, but to do so would be to dishonor thousands of years of culinary tradition inherited from our ancestors. And furthermore, it would be a disservice to my 2 wives. When one can create a meal of such exquisite flavor and aroma, why resort to eating raw and swallowing blood? Before I transmigrated, I was accustomed to fine dining. If I cannot eat even better after this transmigration, would my journey through time not have been entirely in vain? I placed the wok over the fire, adding the precious slab of lard. Once the oil was scorching, I added the dried peppercorns. Sliced ginger and dried chili segments hit the pan, crackling instantly. A sharp, spicy, and refreshing aroma immediately billowed forth, permeating the entire kitchen. It smells so wonderful. I want to eat already. Even in your sleep, you remain such a glutton. I never saw you act this way in the past. Ever since coming to the young master's residence, it is as if your nature has completely changed. But truly, the young master's cooking is far more delicious than anything we have ever tasted before. Inside the kitchen, I utilized the remaining oil at the bottom of the wok, stir-frying the sliced venison over a high flame. The meat quickly tightened and changed color, sizzling with a rhythmic sound. The savory aroma of the searing meat merged with the pungent spices, creating a mouth-watering fragrance. Once cooked to 7 parts, I added soy sauce and coarse salt. Then I tossed in the pickled vegetables, stirring quickly. Finally, I plated the dish. It was glistening and fragrant, while on the other side of the stove, the fish soup simmered. The crucian carp, already prepared, were pour in boiling water, begin the process over a roaring flame, then reduce to a low heat to simmer slowly. The broth gradually turns a milky white, season with salt and sprinkle with scallions. The milky fish soup is complete, the tender slices of meat are glistening. Simmering slowly over a low flame ensures the flavors are perfectly preserved. As the meal is brought to the main hall, Lin Qingyue is no longer drowsy, nor is she in the mood to play. Seeing me pick up my chopsticks, she begins to eat earnestly, her forehead beaded with sweat, her small mouth smeared with grease, unable to spare a single word. Eat slowly, no one is going to take it from you. I place a piece of meat into her bowl. Is it delicious? It is delicious. The little girl stuffs her mouth until it is full, her speech muffled but filled with satisfaction. After finishing, Lin Qingyue settles her younger sister into bed, then goes to wash the bowls and chopsticks, meticulously cleaning the kitchen. Once everything is in order, she returns to the side chamber and finds that instead of cultivating, Lin Qingyue is sound asleep. She sighs in relief, softly lights an oil lamp, and carefully applies her makeup before the bronze mirror. In the main bedroom, I sit cross-legged and circulate my breathing technique, accumulating the foundation required to break through into the Blood-Qi realm. I allocate a total of 30,015 cultivation points into my cultivation manual. From the entry level of the Qi manipulation technique, my progress stands at 891,3000. Before I can fully digest the surging power, light footsteps echo from outside the door, followed by a hesitant voice. "Young master, have you retired for the evening?" "Not yet, come in." The door is gently pushed open. She is clearly just bathed, dressed in elegant robes, her dark hair draped over her shoulders, emanating a faint, pleasant fragrance. Under the dim lamplight, her cheeks are flushed with a rosy hue. She dare not meet my gaze, her slender fingers nervously twisting the hem of her garment. I understand well in my heart. I had considered that this day might come. I did not expect it to arrive so soon. She takes a deep breath and looks up, her voice as soft as a mosquito's hum, yet perfectly clear. Husband, the night is deep. Shall Qingjiao prepare the bed for you? Qingyu has only just recovered from her injuries. Her nature is innocent, and she understands nothing of these matters. Therefore, young master, she stammers. Shame overwhelmed me, leaving me with nowhere to hide. Her ears were burning, flushed as if stained with blood, and in that moment my heart finally understood. I stood up and walked toward the door. She watched me leave, her expression filled with confusion and unease. Could it be that he disdains my status as a disgraced criminal? A flicker of sorrow darkened the young woman's eyes as the wooden door drifted shut. A moment later, I returned holding 2 red candles, 2 small cups, and a flask of light wine. I placed the candle holders on the table and lit the wicks. Though the circumstances are rushed, the snow falls heavily, and these are truly turbulent times, the rites of a marriage must still be observed. The red candles burned with a steady, tranquil glow. I guided Lin Qingyue to solemnly bow to the heavens and earth, poured the wine, and we drank the ceremonial cup with arms entwined. The wine was poured, the ceremony complete, and yet there was a lingering sweetness to it. As she fell into a daze, I took up a pair of shears and carefully cut a lock of her hair, then one of my own. I tied the 2 locks together and placed them inside a red silk pouch. Of the 4 great joys in life, to experience even one in these times is already a blessing amidst the chaos of the world. Lin Qingjiao's heart rippled with emotion, and she barely noticed when she was led to the bedside. The candlelight flickered, casting a romantic glow throughout the room, and the curtains were gently drawn. From this day forward, may I address you as husband? Since we are already husband and wife in both name and reality, why would that not be allowed? Husband, let me rest for a moment. May I rest for a while? As you wish, my wife. Outside the window, the moonlight shone clear as water, bathing the room in a pale silvery light, when the voice of the system echoed in my mind. Host and wife, Lin Qingyue, have achieved a harmony of hearts. Spousal intimacy has increased. The cultivation feedback multiplier has risen to 5 times, or is it 8 times? The qi gathering technique currently under cultivation can now enter a state of resonance through dual cultivation with your partner. Respiratory cultivation methods are now operating automatically, with efficiency increased by 250%. As the notification faded, I could clearly perceive that a profound, mysterious connection had been forged between me and the young woman sleeping soundly beside me. I instinctively channeled the qi harmonization technique, yet the speed of the circulation was no different from any other day. It was supposed to increase efficiency, and recalling the system notification, I glanced at Lin Qingyue, who was still fast asleep. Drawing upon the experience of countless web novels I had read in my past life, a daring thought occurred to me. I stilled my heart and focused my mind for a moment, and the technique began to cycle several times faster than during my usual arduous training. The primordial energy of heaven and earth converged with shocking speed, forming a minute circulation between the two of us. With every full cycle, my life force and blood essence grew more refined. I do not know how much time had passed, but my dantian felt increasingly saturated, and my entire body surged with comfort. As the east began to brighten, I ceased my cultivation. Qi harmonization technique entered the entry level. Lin Qingjiao's cultivation progress feedback increased by 21. A single night of effort was equivalent to many days of bitter practice. The resonance effect between our physiques is truly extraordinary. Tucking the blanket around her, I stood up cautiously to check my fortune for the day. The overall fortune for today is mediocre. Landlord Zhang is exhausted from last night and currently sleeping. Paying a visit now might yield a modest reward. There are 2 copper coins hidden under a rock at the foot of Mount Qingmei. A few men from the village are planning to head up the mountain to test their luck. Ominous. Aunt Jianqin is jealous of yesterday's harvest and is rushing to complain to the grandmother, looking for a way to seize the prey. These 4 pieces of information possess almost no value. I shall refrain from going out today. It is a good opportunity to stay home and stabilize my foundation, and finish constructing the fish pond properly. In about 2 days, I should be able to break through to the blood essence realm. I welcomed the purple energy from the east to cultivate, absorbing the innate purple energy to increase my proficiency by 60 points, and then took my tools to the edge of the fish pond. As the sun climbed higher, I swung my hoe to dig the trench, and light footsteps approached from behind. Lin Qingjiao arrived, carrying a bowl of hot soup. She had changed into a modest dress, her dark hair pinned up at the nape of her neck, with stray wisps dancing in the morning breeze. Her gait was slightly slower than usual, as if she still felt some discomfort, yet she persisted in bringing the soup to me. Husband, please rest for a moment. She offered the bowl, her voice gentle, her eyes avoiding my gaze. I took the bowl, noticing the flush upon her. Having slept enough, Tongwit awoke and immediately asked for breakfast. I understood her intentions well, so I did not press the matter further. It has been hard on you. It is no trouble at all. Being able to serve my husband is my greatest blessing. The soup was at the perfect temperature, and I felt a warmth spread through my heart. I reached out and gently took her hand. Her entire body trembled slightly, but she did not pull away. Instead, her face flushed even deeper red. As the morning light stretched across the courtyard, the 2 of us stood there in silence, neither speaking a word. Oh, elder sister, why is your face so flushed? And furthermore, why is your gait so strange? Were you struck by a great tiger? Lin Qingyue wished she could simply vanish into the earth. She glared fiercely at her younger sister, yet she could not utter a single word in reply. What are you laughing at? Hey sister, why are you dragging me away? I haven't finished asking my questions yet. While others spent their leisure time at the lake listening to music, I seized my own free time to diligently cultivate, focusing on completing the fish pond. After all, I was only a thin veil away from breaking through to the next Blood Qi realm. I picked up the shovel and continued my work. As my proficiency points increased, my control over my strength became increasingly precise. It was no longer a matter of brute force digging, and my efficiency was far greater than it had been the night before. Once the fish pond had taken its basic shape, I jumped in to reinforce the walls using a mixture of clay and dried grass, kneading it thoroughly before plastering it onto the bottom and all four sides of the pond, meticulously compressing it until firm. I smoothed the surface until it was perfectly flat. Allow me to lend you a hand. No, there is no need. I can handle this on my own. Your most pressing priority is to focus on your cultivation. My husband, my talent in the martial arts of the Heavenly Mansion is inferior to that of my younger sister. I wonder when I will finally be able to enter the Blood Essence realm. I have a way. I let out a soft cough. The young girl was overjoyed. What way is that? I waved my hand, signaling her to lean in closer. It is very simple. If you wish to enter the Blood Essence realm quickly, you need only repeat the scene from last night. Do you still remember how you acted then? Lin Qingyue instinctively recalled everything. The strange sounds she made last night, the peculiar sensations, her legs trembling uncontrollably, and the sight of her being forced to sign a treaty of defeat. Her face instantly flushed crimson and she stuttered, unable to form a coherent sentence as she caught me staring at her. She let out a muffled sound and fled in haste. Was there really a need to be so embarrassed? I continued my restoration work. The layer of clay was packed tight and smooth. The basin meant for retaining water had taken shape, and I proceeded to dig a trench for irrigation, building a low wall to contain the shallow water area. Finally, I emptied the fish from the jar into the pond. Once finished, I returned to the courtyard, picked up a heavy bow, and gave some instructions. Lin Qingyue had just woken up and was busy contemplating her swordsmanship. Do not just focus on your next meal. The little girl happily accepted the advice. An hour later, I was slightly short of breath, but the system's notification chime rang out. Lin Qingyue practiced the breathing technique, rewards increased eightfold. Proficiency points increased by 80. Qingyue contemplated the green cloud sword technique, rewards increased fivefold. Proficiency points increased. Qingtian sword technique entered the beginner stage at 28,400. Total proficiency points 243. Hearing the proficiency points flow into my reserves, my back felt no fatigue and my legs felt no pain. I called the two of them to rest and prepare for lunch. With such an abundance of provisions, I gathered fresh ingredients and meat, bustling about the kitchen for a while. After eating, the three of us returned to our rooms to focus on cultivation. Under the effect of the eightfold return, I gained over 60 more proficiency points. Even though I was just walking around outside, my proficiency points and the progress of my cultivation technique continued to soar. It was all thanks to the two sisters who practiced cultivation without rest. It granted me the exquisite sensation of idling, watching my cultivation level soar automatically. By the time the sun began to set, the sisters consumed another body-tempering pill. Only after circulating their internal energy for one full cycle did they conclude their session. Watching their proficiency points climb at such a dizzying rate, it was clear just how desperately the two were cultivating. A period of time where one could cultivate to their heart's content was something they had never experienced, even while serving at the government office. The two sisters were filled with immense joy and excitement. For those at the very bottom of society, to stay indoors all day just to cultivate was an unimaginable luxury. Breathing techniques were not something just anyone could master. The energy consumption was too great for those without a proper foundation to sustain. Labor power was a precious commodity, and such treatment was an indulgence only the upper nobility deserved. Young master, I have a matter that makes me quite curious. What is it? Since sister returned from that trip to the tea house, her gait has become rather strange. What could be the cause? Ah, young master, do you also enjoy riding the bouncing carriage? Are you all right? Sister likes the bouncing carriage and had been waiting for a long time. That is why she is like that. I spoke nonsense on a whim. A bouncing carriage? Young master, I want to play too. After finishing the chores following their meal, Lin Qingyue saw that Lin Qingyue had already swallowed a body-tempering pill and entered a deep state of cultivation. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. She tiptoed stealthily into my bedroom. Under the dim, flickering lamplight, I maintained a stern expression. Qingjiao practicing the sword today has left me with aching muscles. Come over here and massage me for a while. Yes, I obey. The tips of her ears turned a deep crimson. Why is the proficiency back down again? The system notified me silently, but I had no time to spare for it. 7 days later, I mastered the basics of the purple chi harmonization method. Waking up early, I drew the moonflower divination for my daily fortune. The results were entirely mediocre, offering no intelligence of real value. I resumed my cultivation, standing before the bow I intended to practice with during the day. I stood in the courtyard, drawing the bow with my hands and waist aligned, my legs and stance perfectly integrated into a unified whole. The wooden bullseye 20 paces away shattered instantly, sawdust scattering into the air as the two sisters practiced their swordplay with grim focus. With the heaven-piercing spirit sword technique mastered, I was only one layer away from the Blood Key realm. Today, I had to push my swordsmanship to the minor completion stage. A few hours later, with the heaven-piercing spirit sword at minor completion, I was able to draw a 170 kadi bow. With unerring accuracy, I could condense my blood key and fire it into each arrow. Having grasped the momentum, I pulled the bowstring taut, and my blood key surged naturally, flowing into the arrow. The arrow tore through the wind like a flash of lightning, piercing the center of the target 100 paces away and embedding itself deep into the wood. The vital energy within my body cycled with increasing speed. I refined each thread of blood key, and over 70% of it was now tinged with a faint purple haze. The purple chi harmonization method had reached the entry level. As the setting sun dipped below the horizon, I called them in for a meal. Lin Qingyue hurried back to her room. Lin Qingyue, thinking of what would happen after the meal, blushed deeply when I teased her. Late into the night, my cultivation efficiency increased by 250%. During the first hour, I recorded the truths of my practice. During the second hour, I committed them to memory with solemn focus. During the third hour, I felt the stinging pain of experience. I could not allow myself to be interrupted again. By the end of the third hour, the purple chi harmonization method was fully mastered. At dawn, I exhaled a breath of turbid air over a foot long, the golden light in my eyes receding as it was time for a breakthrough. I poured 500 points of proficiency into the purple chi harmonization method to reach minor completion. The technique, now at the minor completion stage, circulated with perfect fluidity. The efficiency far surpassed my previous limits. The blood key within my body grew stronger and more solidified, relentlessly hammering against an invisible barrier after days of consolidation until it was completely saturated with purple energy. My dantian was like a reservoir brimming with floodwaters. Having reached the absolute limit, it would be a failure to not break through now. I exerted all my strength to drive the cultivation technique to its peak. The torrent of blood key underwent a qualitative transformation at its core. My dantian was washed, tempered, condensed, and purified once more. The seed of chi grew increasingly solid. Across his body, a series of cracking sounds signaled a startling transformation. Host has achieved a breakthrough in the blood chi realm. Strength increased 8-fold. Proficiency points awarded 240. As I finished my cultivation, I could clearly sense my power surging. My reaction speed, bone density, and muscle strength had all reached an incredible level. I could clearly distinguish the veins on the leaves of trees dozens of meters away. Even the slightest sound of snow accumulating, branches bending, or dry twigs snapping in the distance could not escape my ears. Out of habit, I performed a divination. The result was merely average for the moonflower hexagram. 3 consecutive days of such miserable luck. Forget it, at the very worst I shall eat fish every day. I opened the system interface. Host Qin Ran, Realm, Elevation Technique, Breath Conveying Method. Skills, Heaven-Piercing Spirit Sword, minor success. With a single swing of my arm, I generate 960 Jin of force. By channeling internal chi, it can be projected outside the body. Ordinary blades and swords would struggle to inflict even the slightest injury. A typical martial artist who has just achieved a breakthrough possesses only about 300 to 400 Jin of force. A typical martial artist who has just achieved a breakthrough possesses only about 300 to 400 Jin of force. This starting point of mine is far superior to the norm. Stepping out into the courtyard, I threw a casual punch at a dead tree, the wind of the blow howling sharply. The dry tree shook violently, its leaves cascading down, and a fist-sized hole suddenly appeared in the center of the trunk. This destructive power is truly formidable. The 2 sisters in the house were startled awake by the commotion and rushed outside. Sensing the pressure of my blood chi, they were overcome with astonishment. A breakthrough was an inevitable outcome, yet they had not expected it to happen so quickly. Young master, your speed of advancement is truly monstrous. Very well, let us head back inside. It is getting cold, let us eat. This is wonderful. However, as soon as the meal was set upon the table, a clamor of shouting and cursing erupted outside the courtyard gate. Big brother, dear sister-in-law, my own flesh and blood. Open your eyes and see the fine son the 2 of you have brought into this world. They have captured a beast and already forgotten their own ancestors. Mother still possesses over 10 acres of farmland and a secret martial arts manual. Indeed, that farmland must be retained at all costs. Even the secret manual must be brought out for common use. Beside those 3, an old man, gaunt and arrogant, stood squinting, with absolutely no intention of intervening. He is my grandfather who had entered the blood key realm in my early years. Old man Qin patted Qinshi on the shoulder. Qin Ran truly knows nothing of filial piety. He deserves to be taught a lesson. Rest assured, this old man's words still carry weight. Inside the courtyard, I shook my head. The parasites of this household had finally come to my doorstep, clinging to their status as elders. But such hollow threats, to someone who has transmigrated from Lanjing, possess not even the slightest lethality. Let alone breaking my mental resolve, I could even stand by and watch their performance. But for the sake of future peace, I still stepped out of the room. With a creak, the courtyard gate opened. Outside the gate, Qinxi and Qinzhao stood towering like 2 hulking gate guardians. Leading them was that arrogant old man, with several villagers watching the spectacle from a distance. My upright figure appeared at the threshold, my indifferent gaze sweeping over the men blocking the way, and finally falling upon the old man in front who leaned on a cane. His eyes were narrowed, yet they could not hide the cunning nature of an old fox. My grandfather, Old Man Qin, and the others had come to stir up trouble. I had anticipated this. To put it bluntly, they covet the 10+ acres of fertile land my family own. That, along with this grand house and the spoils I have recently acquired. In the eyes of these people, everything belonging to the original owner, combined with what I have since obtained, should rightfully belong to them. In other words, they likely wish for my death so that they may legitimately use a pretext of righteous duty to seize my entire estate. Is the social climate in Daqian village not a bit too perverse? Qin Ran, do you still have any respect for your You all bar the entrance to my home, and yet you claim I have failed my ancestors? I am a progressive young man from the blue planet, and I do not acknowledge ancestors in this place. Do not speak to me of ancestors. Even if someone were to detonate the graves of the Qin family, I would not feel a shred of remorse. He caught game, yet he knows nothing of respecting his elders, closing his doors to enjoy the spoils alone. Furthermore, he has taken in 2 young women. The thrifty and domestic traditions of our Qin clan have all been ruined by your behavior. Father, look at how he has been living lately. One day it is fish, the next it is meat. He never once remembers that we also need to eat. Qin Ran is currently holding the dozen acres of land my older brother left behind. It cannot be left for him to squander alone. It must be returned. Uncle, you must uphold justice for us. Qin Ran has a cruel heart. Yesterday he hunted such a large deer and caught hundreds of pounds of fish, yet we did not even see a single fish scale. If these people were to go into kidnapping, they would certainly be talented prospects. Listen to how resonant this moral posturing is. It almost makes me feel a little frightened. I am merely toying with you all. Qin Ran, if you know what is good for you, split more than half of the game and the land with us. Hand it over obediently so that your uncle can distribute it. Otherwise, the sheer weight of our insults will drown you. My uncle is a martial artist at the Blood Qi realm. His words carry great weight before the clan elders. Elder Qin listened to the accusations, insults, and half-veiled flattery from his son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren, his eyes narrowing in satisfaction. He spoke in a judgmental tone, Qin Ran, considering your youth and lack of understanding. You must set aside 8/10 of yesterday's earnings to show filial piety to your grandmother and me. As for the land your parents left for your education, the harvest will be split 30-70, with our family taking 70%, and you shall surrender that martial arts manual to me as well. These words were spoken with such an air of righteousness, and though the surrounding villagers could see the blatant bias, they were inhibited by the old man's past influence. They dared only to whisper among themselves. Hey, this family is not one to be trifled with. Young Tan Yin is about to suffer a great injustice. I have heard such distorted truths and nonsensical accusations. Tran smiled, a very faint smile, carrying with it a sense of mockery and coldness. Grandfather, when my parents passed away and their remains were yet cold, while I lay bedridden and critically injured, did you ever step foot into this small courtyard even once? Did you bring over even a single bowl of medicine to save my life? Elder Tan froze, just about to shout and scold him. Today I rely on my own skills to hunt prey and barely scrape by. Yet you all swarm here like flies smelling the scent of carrion, pushing your way in. Your mouths are filled with demands for my land and property. Is this so-called blood bond truly so cheap? It is so cheap that it is nauseating. I spoke in a tone that allowed for no doubt. Today I leave my words here, and I call upon our neighbors to bear witness. I voluntarily sever all ties with your family from this day forward. The land is mine, the house is mine, and the prey is mine as well. None of you shall dare touch even a fraction of a cent. If you are not satisfied, feel free to go to the magistrate's office and strike the drum of injustice. With the heavens above as my witness and the sun and moon as my proof, I shall never go back on my word. You rebellious, unfilial beast, you have finally revolted. Elder Tan was so furious that his entire body trembled, his aged face swelling until it turned crimson. He had never expected that Tan Yin would dare to defy him, even going so far as to demand a total severance. This was truly a challenge to his authority as the patriarch. If he let this slide today, his reputation in Thansun village would be ruined in a single day. Elder Tan, trembling with rage, raised his staff, intending to strike down. In his eyes, even though his own vitality was waning, disciplining this sickly grandson was as easy as turning over his own hand. The staff whistled through the air with 100 caddies of force, descending toward Tan Yan's shoulder. Tan Ran shook his head, no longer bothering to conceal his aura. Boom! The pressure of his life force surged forth, as fierce as a volcanic eruption. Old Tan's staff halted in mid-air, and the vitality within his body was instantly suppressed and stagnated. He widened his eyes, his face filled with terror. The Blood Qi realm. Impossible, this aura far surpasses what I possessed during my own peak years. Although the family of Tan Tu did not understand the depth of it, the oppressive sensation and the elder's ghastly pale complexion were enough to make them realize that something had gone terribly wrong. Tan Ran flicked the staff away effortlessly and tossed it back casually. With a cold gaze, he spoke, "Grandfather, this is the last time I will address you as such. My words will not be retracted, just as your crude and calculating actions will not be forgotten. Can you and this terrified rabble leave at once?" Old Tan seemed to awaken from a dream, his mouth agape, yet he could not utter a single word. He led the family of Tantu and fled in a panic. The crowd of villagers watching the spectacle from afar fell into a dead silence. Only after a long while did someone finally speak. "He has surely entered the Blood Qi realm, has he not?" "That is certain. Otherwise, how could he possess such an aura? To reach the Blood Qi realm at such a young age, his future potential is boundless." The gathered crowd dispersed, each of them realizing that from this day forward, Tan Ran was no longer the frail youth who could be bullied at will. Come here, let us continue our meal." The courtyard gate closed. I turned around and saw Lin Qingyue and Lin Qingyue peeking through the gaps in the door. I smiled and asked, young master, what exactly did you mean by eating? Lin Qingyu asked curiously. It means that if you two do not eat more, I shall devour you instead. Oh, then I shall eat a great deal more, and strive to reach the blood chi realm as soon as possible, so that I may share the burden with the young master. Lin Qingyu giggled and said, after breaking through to the blood chi realm, I haven't. With the two young maidens at ease, I began to recount the tales of Journey to the West and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The sisters listened with rapt attention, leaning in close, fearing they might miss a single detail of the marvelous stories. It was a cozy dinner. I took the remaining venison and grilled it until the aroma filled the air. The fish soup had been simmered until it turned rich and opaque white. If the Qin family knew, the venison would have long been devoured, and the fish would have been depleted by a third before it could even be properly prepared. They would surely rebuke me for squandering resources in the midst of this blizzard. Aside from a wealthy landowner, who else would dare to eat like this year? Yet if others wished to imitate me and venture up the mountain, they would find the outskirts already picked clean. The deeper one travels, the more treacherous the terrain becomes, with fierce beasts lurking in the shadows, enough to turn back 99% of men. At the dinner table, Lin Qingyue excitedly recounted the moment the young master displayed his cultivation. That was the reaction of everyone present. Eat quickly. The young master has gone to such lengths to prepare this meal. Can you not keep your mouth occupied with food? After cleaning up from the meal, I saw Lin Qingyue trailing behind, heading to her room to cultivate. I looked at Lin Qingyu, who was sitting beneath a lamp sewing. I signaled to her. Lin Qingyu's cultivation progress had already reached 30 cycles, achieved within the short time frame of the Shibu fan. But as I pondered, my thoughts began to wander. I whispered into her ear that if she watched how diligent Qingjiao was, she would surely be surpassed if she remained idle. Hurry back to our room. Allow me to personally instruct you on the path to becoming a martial artist. Lin Qing's beautiful face flushed crimson, and the needle in her hand nearly pricked her finger. She cast a shy, reproachful glance at me. Where had her husband's refined demeanor gone? Oh, as I told her, true affection between a husband and wife should deepen with each passing day. One morning, I awoke feeling refreshed, the blood and qi circulating perfectly through my body. After the breakthrough, the efficiency of my cultivation increased significantly. Concentrated cultivation for 1 hour could now yield 60 points, and even automatic circulation provided 40 points. Even if I only cultivated for 7 or 8 hours a day, I was already far faster than any ordinary person. Ever since the Qijiao Hifa was completed, the efficiency of our dual cultivation has reached 5 stars. Seeing that Lin Qingyu was still fast asleep, I made use of the time and rose from bed. Following my usual routine, I began to commune with the moonlight, though in recent days my luck had been rather lackluster. I hope to receive a great fortune today. The overall fortune for today is medium luck. Medium luck deep within the depths of Qingmao Mountain's base. A 100-year-old blood ginseng is about to reach maturity. The earth-shattering black bear that guarded it has just given birth to 3 cubs. Its vitality was severely damaged, and it succumbed to death last night. Inside the cave, only the 3 bear cubs remain. Small luck at the edge of the dense forest of Qingmao Mountain. A plump rabbit has revealed its tracks. Medium luck in the valley blocked off by the northern slope of Qingmao Mountain. Hidden in the center of the marsh is a large patch of wild mountain garlic. Medium luck while communicating with the moonlight to absorb the new energy. Blood ginseng. A 100-year-old blood ginseng is a precious medicinal herb that replenishes vitality and strengthens one's foundation. The vicious beast guarding it is dead. This is truly a heaven-sent opportunity. The second and third signs are not bad either. But what on earth is that last one? Never mind, it is time to depart. I quickly gathered my equipment and left a letter for the 2 girls, telling them to stay home and cultivate diligently. I locked the gate tightly. The village was very quiet in the early morning. The frost lingered as I had not gone far from the door when I unexpectedly ran into someone. What a coincidence. No wonder the magpie was chirping incessantly today. A magpie in this freezing winter. If a magpie were to show its face, it would surely freeze to death. After observing for a long moment, I recalled from the original owner's memories that this was a notorious woman in the village, Widow Wang, whose husband had passed away early. She has a daughter, but we have no relationship whatsoever. Why would she block my path so early in the morning? Aunt Wang, is something the matter? Nephew, you have a bright future ahead of you now. Since you have become a martial artist and established your own household, is it not time to consider the important matter of marriage? She paused for a moment, a look of complacency appearing on her face. Do you still remember? When you and my daughter were young, a betrothal was arranged between your families. Although your family went through some hardships later on, the betrothal still stands. You know my daughter well. She is the finest flower in the village. Her beauty is blossoming more each day. I see that you are no longer a child. It is time to add this marriage matter to the agenda. Based on the memories of the original host, the childhood fiancée was indeed quite beautiful. However, her temperament was deeply flawed, characterized by extreme arrogance. She was vain, looking down on everyone, and previously, when Wang Gufu had spoken of it in jest, the original host's family had merely humored the idea with vague nods, as no one truly considered it a serious commitment. Later, as the family's fortunes declined, the mother and daughter never showed their faces again, and there were even rumors that they mocked the original host's father for being a sickly weakling. What a disgrace. Marrying Qiyuan would be a far better fate. Thinking of this, my heart was filled with nothing but cold mockery. Seeing my silence, Wang Gufu assumed I was struck dumb with surprise. Xing Li dear, I am not asking for much considering your current assets. Surely taking a portion of the meat and fish stored in your home wouldn't be too much of a burden, right? And preparing an additional 20 taels of silver, that isn't asking for much either, is it? It's all settled then. This marriage can be considered official. What do you think? Have I not shown you enough favor? With my daughter's figure, she will certainly bear you a few sons. I am aware. You have just taken in 2 young women, but how could outsiders compare to someone from the village whose roots are known? Once we become in-laws, it will undoubtedly be a legendary tale within the village. My face twitched. How Han, you certainly have the gall to demand such things. Even the great Qing would declare war if they heard these conditions. I apologize, but this is not suitable. I believe Qin Yuan is not a bad match. You should go and speak with him instead. I steered the sled around her and headed straight out of the village. I disregarded the noise, ventured deep into the mountains, first clearing out a rabbit warren and digging up wild yams, then excitedly piling them onto my sled. Next came the primary objective, the century-old blood ginseng. Once secured, it would be more than enough for the 2 sisters to break through into the blood chi realm. It might even help my own cultivation realm progress further. The blood chi realm is divided into early, middle, late, and completion stages. It is said that at the completion stage, one possesses the strength of 3,000 jin, comparable to a war machine. However, the further one progresses, the greater the consumption becomes. Ordinary meat and herbs no longer suffice, and one must rely solely on arduous cultivation. Therefore, I must obtain this blood ginseng. Following the directions, I ventured deep into the hidden valley and arrived after about an hour. In the silence of the valley, I quickly spotted the blood ginseng beneath a cliff. It stood about half a foot tall with a dark yellow stalk and a crown as vibrant as a ruby. The stalk was thick, radiating a faint red glow and the fragrant scent of medicine. Having matured not long ago, I slowly approached it. From a cave nearby, a faint whimpering sound drifted out. I peered inside to see that the cave was lined with dry grass. A massive mother bear lay slumped in the corner, emaciated as a withered branch. Beside her were 3 black bear cubs, no larger than kittens, huddled together and shivering violently. They were on the brink of death. I let out a soft sigh. I dug a hole in the snow to bury the mother bear. Then I carefully and meticulously unearthed the blood ginseng. After storing it securely in a jade box, I returned to the cave. I removed my outer cloak, wrapped the 3 tiny creatures in it, and placed them safely in a corner of the sled. I began my descent. After another half hour, I would be home, and I would need to find some milk for these little ones. Who knows, perhaps the sisters in the Clear sect would fight over who gets to take care of them. While lost in thought, trekking through a dense forest, my footsteps suddenly halted. I had been targeted. This intuition could not be wrong. I came to a stop, my gaze sweeping across the surroundings. From the shadows cast upon the snow in the middle of the forest, pairs of menacing emerald green eyes slowly emerged, over a dozen wild wolves in total. Their bodies were robust and their fur thick and glossy. Clearly, they had been feeding well this winter. But at this moment, they were all snarling, staring fixedly at the jade box in my possession. Their drool dripped onto the snow, melting it into tiny pits. The blood ginseng had brought trouble upon me. The wolf pack spread out into a fan formation, closing in to surround me. The lead beasts emanated an incredibly formidable aura. They emitted low, guttural growls. It was a warning before the strike. I frowned, having no desire to invite unnecessary trouble, especially while escorting the 3 young ones behind me. I pulled 2 fat rabbits and all of our dried rations from the sled and threw them toward the pack of wolves. Take the food and begun. Do not even think about anything else. Simultaneously, I drew my hunting bow, notched an arrow, and fused it with my life force, fired at the massive tree looming over the pack. Whoosh! Thud! The arrow pierced straight through a tree trunk as thick as a grown man's waist. It then embedded itself deep into the tree standing behind it. The branches trembled violently. This was a stern warning. We had underestimated the irresistible allure of fresh flesh to these ferocious beasts. The pack was momentarily startled into a frenzy, but upon seeing the plump rabbits and catching the scent of delicious blood and meat, they did not retreat. Instead, they pressed forward even more aggressively. The savage glint in their eyes burned even brighter. They mistook my restraint for weakness. I was so amused by their insolence that I nearly laughed. My last shred of mercy vanished. I offered them a chance, yet they chose to throw it away. You desire death, then? My gaze turned icy in an instant. Swish, swish, swish! Arrows flew like the scythe of death. Within 100 paces, every shot found its mark. The first few wolves to charge were pierced through in the blink of an eye. Struck through the heart, they collapsed to the ground, throwing the pack into chaos, though their ferocity was only further incited. The remaining 11 wolves, including the Wolf King, charged with suicidal, savage intent. I let out a cold snort, slung my bow over my back, tightened my grip, and threw a punch, landing squarely on the abdomen of a wolf leaping toward me. The sickening sound of shattering bone echoed through the air. That wolf was sent flying as if struck by a massive 100-ton carriage. Its spine twisted in a grotesque manner as it let out a pathetic howl, slamming into a tree and losing its life instantly. I narrowly dodged the bite of another, my right hand darting out with lightning speed to seize the throat of a third wolf as it lunged to strike. My fingers clamped down like iron tongs. With a crisp snap, his windpipe was crushed and his limbs spasmed before falling limp. My movements were precise, efficient, and brutal. I stepped directly into the wolf pack, my figure weaving through their midst. Every strike was accompanied by the sound of splintering bone and the dying cries of beasts. Amidst the miserable wailing, fists, palms, elbows, and knees, every part of my body had become a lethal weapon. Any wolf that lunged at me was either killed or severely wounded. Even the Wolf King could barely parry 3 blows before being struck down. Under the tempering of the Zixia vitality, my physical vessel has far surpassed that of an ordinary man. At this level of vitality, the claws of these wolves could not inflict even the slightest scratch. This was nothing more than a one-sided slaughter. With overwhelming strength and mastery, it did not even take the time of an incense stick. The battle had reached its conclusion. Across the clearing lay more than 10 wolf carcasses. Fresh blood stained the snow crimson, leaving only 2 or 3 wounded wolves, shattered by fear. They let out mournful howls before fleeing into the depths of the forest. I stood in place, my breathing steady, my clothes unruffled, shaking the wolf blood from my hands. Exhilarating. It was truly exhilarating. Such combat is deeply satisfying. This first battle since stepping into the Vitality realm was swift and decisive, providing me with a clear understanding of my own combat prowess. Looking at the wolf corpses scattered across the ground, I pondered for a moment, especially regarding the few alpha wolves that had touched the threshold of becoming fierce beasts. I dragged them all onto the sled. Although it was a bit troublesome, wolf skin and meat hold no small value. It would be a waste to leave them behind. 4 fat hares, 1 large musk deer, 3 small bear cubs, and finally the dozen wolves that had practically delivered themselves to my doorstep. The sled, weighed down heavily, groaned under the burden with a rhythmic creaking. My mood and the state of the sled were in stark contrast to one another. A bountiful harvest. This was truly a bountiful harvest. Dragging a haul even more magnificent than the one from 2 days ago, the sled, piled high like a small mountain, moved step by step toward Qingshan village. When I appeared at the village gate, my father, who was gossiping with a group of middle-aged women and some hunters returning from their rounds, caught sight of this spectacle. That moment sent shockwaves through the entire village. The snow at the village entrance was trampled into a hard-packed layer. Several women tucked their hands into their sleeves, huddled together to gossip. You didn't see the arrogant look on Qin Ran's face this morning. My father continued to blather on, spittle flying as he spoke. Can you all guess what happened next? What happened? A woman knitting a sweater asked, full of curiosity. The young man lowered his eyes and spoke. So what if he thinks our lives are lowly and unworthy of him? He then turned and walked away without looking back. It is truly detestable how he looks down on his own kin just because he found a woman from elsewhere. Before her words could fade, she suddenly went silent, her eyes widening in shock. She stared fixedly toward the village gate. The group of gossiping women and the laborers returning home were also frozen in place. Their expressions shifted from leisure to pure terror in the blink of an eye. Amidst the snowstorm, a figure was pulling a sled as large as a small hill, moving forward with slow, steady steps. Is that Qin Ran? Are my eyes deceiving me? Did we not just witness this very scene 2 days ago? A hunter rubbed his eyes, realizing he was not seeing things. It was indeed Qin Ran, and the load on the sled towered well above his own height. When they saw the contents of the sled clearly, everyone was left completely dumbfounded. The sled creaked and groaned as if it were about to fall apart at any moment. Piled haphazardly on top were 4 or 5 fat rabbits, and beside them sat a large basket of wild yam, weighing at least 20 or 30 caddies. But this was merely the appetizer. What truly left them paralyzed with shock was the rear half of the sled, where wolf carcasses were stacked like a mountain. There were over a dozen wild wolves piled atop one another. Their gray-brown fur was matted and stiffened with clotted blood. The gruesome wolf heads hung limp, revealing sharp white fangs. The thick, pungent scent of blood assaulted their senses, carried by the wind even from over 10 meters away. Someone swallowed hard, barely able to speak. They are all wolves. Has he wiped out an entire wolf pack? A man pinched his own thigh, grimacing in pain to ensure he was not dreaming. Look at those largest ones. Their aura is truly terrifying. Are they not on the verge of becoming feral beasts? A hunter trembled, for wolves in the depths of winter are at their most ferocious. They hunt in packs, and even the most seasoned and experienced hunters would take a detour if they encountered a pack of 30 or more. Yet Tan Yen had slaughtered more than a dozen of them and dragged their carcasses back. Before their shock could even subside, those with a keen eye noticed something tucked into the corner of the sled. Wrapped within an old fur coat were 3 tiny squirming balls of fluff. As I passed by, pulling the sled with a calm expression, I heard the murmurs of the crowd and could only offer a wry smile. I truly did not intend to stand out so prominently. But there was only this one path leading back to the village. There is a saying, one does not fear a thief, but rather one fears being targeted by one. I must return home as quickly as possible. One of the eldest hunters noticed me passing by. After nodding in greeting, he narrowed his eyes to inspect those 3 bundles of fluff, and suddenly he drew in a sharp breath of cold air. Those are the cubs of a ground-shattering black bear. With these markings and bone structure, there can be no mistake. The ground-shattering black bear is a fearsome beast that even a martial artist in the blood energy realm would avoid provoking. It is the type of monster that can crush a boulder weighing thousands of pounds with a single swipe of its paw. This meant that Tan Yin had not only wiped out a pack of wolves, but he had also raided the den of a black bear. He had even brought the cubs back alive. The minds of the onlookers seemed to go blank, and a chill surged from their spines straight to their scalps. This was not merely Tan Yin going out to hunt. He was practically scouring the lairs of demonic beasts. The mother looked at those who were just moments ago on her side, but were now whispering and pointing at her. Her forehead throbbed with veins, only she now did realize how foolish her prejudice against Tan Yian truly was, leaving her with nothing but a face burning with shame and a heart full of regret. She gazed at the mountain of wolf carcasses and the 3 bear cubs nursing. Her heart felt bitter and her insides churned with unease. Fortunately, she had not scolded Tan Yian too loudly that morning. Perhaps he had not heard her, and there might still be an opportunity. She only needed her daughter to employ a gentle, persuasive approach. However, the minimum bride price could not be lowered. Otherwise, people would think her daughter was too easy to acquire. Once he eventually forgets this incident, I will lower the bride price by just a little bit then. Consider it an act of atonement. My father continued to mumble defiantly. I acted as if I did not notice the eyes turning toward me in increasing numbers. I halted my pace, nodding in greeting to the hunters and villagers I recognized, then dragged this mountain of meat toward village elder's house. Not until my silhouette vanished did the village entrance erupt in a clamor. This lad Qin Ran must have been blessed by the mountain god. Only days ago he was bedridden, and now he obtains whatever he desires. Village elder was sitting under the eaves, puffing on his pipe, when suddenly he felt the sky darken. As he looked up to see me and the small mountain of prey, he choked on a mouthful of smoke and began to cough violently. Lad Qin Ran, have you wiped out the entire wolf pack? I was merely fortunate, elder. I handled them while I was at it. I smiled. The winter is bitter, so I have brought you some meat to go with your drink. Is the wolf meat already butchered? Saying this, I took 2 plump wolves and set them aside. The wizened old man circled the sled twice, stroked the fur of the alpha wolf, then gazed at the 3 bear cubs, and finally patted my shoulder. You boy. Damn it all, you truly are a monster. A few days ago, you brought back a roe deer, and today you have returned with an entire pack of wolves and bear cubs. In a few days, do you intend to bring back the entire Qingmao mountain as well? That does not sound like a bad idea. When that time comes, I shall show you my signature shovel striking technique. What is a shovel striking technique? It is my family's secret ancestral combat art, never to be revealed to outsiders. He rambled on for a while, but I tactfully declined his invitation to stay. I dragged the remaining prey and the bear cubs back home. The old man watched my retreating back, then glanced at the 2 wolves left on the ground. It seems his cultivation in the blood energy realm is far beyond the initial stage. I pushed open the gate and entered the courtyard. Lin Qingyue, this time she was far more composed. However, upon catching sight of the mountain of wolf carcasses piled upon the sled, her beautiful eyes still flickered with undisguised astonishment. I took a closer look at the garments she was washing. Good heavens, aside from the undergarments belonging to the 2 sisters, there was a small pile of my own attire, which had been wretchedly shredded during the previous night's battle. My husband, you have returned. She set aside her work and stepped forward to greet me. She took a handkerchief and gently wiped the bloodstains from my face. The harvest is particularly bountiful this time. To step into the blood condensation realm, the previous output of Ran was merely a stroke of luck. Young Master Tan Ran has returned. What treasures have you brought back for us today? Ah, so many wolves. Did you provoke a wolf pack, young master? It was the pack that threw themselves into my path. I corrected her with a serious expression. How tiny, how absolutely adorable. The petite girl crouched beside the sled, her eyes sparkling as she watched the 3 tiny creatures huddling together for warmth. The 3 round, fluffy balls shivered incessantly, emitting faint, whimpering cries. Their small noses, resembling black pearls, twitched, and their dewy eyes were filled with confusion. For both men and women, such a sight possessed an undeniable lethality, much like a man unable to resist the allure of high-performance hardware. Just as women cannot resist the pull of a shopping center, they are not puppies. These are the cubs of a fierce earth black bear. Watching their expressions filled with curiosity, I smiled and corrected them. Bear cubs? Lin Qingyue was stunned, cautiously reaching out a finger to stroke one of the small bear cubs. It feels no different from a puppy when stroking the downy fur on its head, does it? Indeed, when they are young, they are